to the Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, episode number 45. That means it's a big show, because that's what we do on the fives. Rock and roll. This is our big Proto-Slasher special. I'm Dave Z. Let me bring in the Norman Bates of Horrorphilia, Mr. Brandon. How are you, sir?
Hello.
I don't remember Norman ever saying that.
Alfred Hitchcock called Anthony Perkins masturbates on set the whole time.
Are you serious?
Yep. At least that was on the B, and I read that as an interesting little fact. So for this show, I would like you to call me masturbates.
Okay. I'll see if I can do that.
Looks like you've done it 3 times today already.
Nice.
Get this glazed look to him.
No wonder my beard is sticky.
He looks like a crispy clean donut.
Oh, gross. And this other guy here that's cracking wise, the guy who last week was vindicated by something Texas Chainsaw, and today I am going to put him back in the doghouse for something Texas Chainsaw. And Christian, how are you, sir?
Doghouse my nuts. I'm great. Thank you for asking.
Yes, of course. Well, you want to know why you're in the doghouse?
Oh, okay, thrill me.
Great answer. How many shows of Post-Mortem were you on? Can you just venture a guess?
I think 20.
Okay, so 20 fucking shows. You worked with Oz, and you were not able, in those 20 shows, to teach him that, rest in peace, that Tobe Hooper's name is not Tobe.
I don't know if we ever did a Tobe Hooper film. So I don't think it popped up. I'm sorry. I'm super sorry.
You should be. You should be. And I have to blame you, because I'm not going to blame poor Oz, because, well, let's face it, he's not on the show, and I don't really want to bust the guy's balls too hard. But
how am I going to get blamed for? I'm not even on the show, and he's the one that said it. How is he not getting blamed, and I'm getting blamed?
Because I can do that to you, and I can't do that to Oz. I don't want him to get pissed at me. So I'm going to blame you.
You did it to Oz, though. I saw the Facebook feed.
There's another connection between Texas Chainsaw and Christian.
What?
Yeah. Okay. I was going to save it till we get to the review, but since, much like Franklin, Christian is our fifth wheel.
Oh. Leave Franklin alone.
Cockblocking his own sister.
Leave him alone. Listen, I watched Texas Chainsaw documentary after documentary. I saw Gunnar Hansen. I saw Bill Moseley, plastic plate and all. I saw Edwin Neal. I saw everybody. Marilyn Byrne. I saw every single person. Kim Henkel. Everybody.
We watched the movie too.
Refer to the man as Toby. Nobody calls him Tobe. But yet...
Only his really close friends call him Tobe.
Oh, that's it.
I think it's Tobith. Okay. I think it's Tobith Hooper.
Tobith? I think that's his Hebrew name.
Tobith Hooper. Shakespearean.
He might be the next host of Postmortem.
Is this a chainsaw I see before me?
He likes the movie. He might bring in Tobe Hooper to co-host it with him.
Wow.
I don't know.
Those are cinema attack jokes.
Right?
You're an exploding heads now.
You leave cinema attack out of this.
We gotta talk shit about everything. Cinema attack, Postmortem, who else? Let's just motherfuck everybody on the network.
Oh no, we're not saying anything bad about Postmortem. TGIF 13. Hey, there'll be another show out before this one hits, that's for sure.
You know what the hardest part for Vince is? Fitting in.
It's because he's so big.
Indeed. Brandon?
In my dreams he is.
See? There you go. All right, we better not fuck around too much, because this is a big show here. We're talking about Proto-Slashers. Now, what's the reason we're talking about these movies today? Because we're doing our big show, episode 50, the top 50 slashers. We've been watching slashers all year.
North American slashers.
North American, yeah, and that's part of it. I mean, when we
Canadian.
Fucking Americans.
Honestly, as much of a joke as that is, I probably do have to say that as an American, because we don't really learn geography too well here.
Well, you're talking for the folks in Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah.
We're very big in Alabama.
Yeah, we are. I'll listen right after I get through fucking my sister.
You know, we might have some Southern listeners here, or people from Alabama.
Yeah, well, and that was one of them.
Yeah, you're right. We got to talk shit about them too. Why not? I'm coming off like we're always nice to all our listeners and all our, our peers and everybody else. We're not nice to anybody, really. Not even each other.
If you guys had it your way, you'd kick Alabama right out of the fucking United States. What are you fucking kidding? It'd be 49 states done.
Well, the world needs ditch diggers too.
Is that a Caddyshack joke?
Yes, it is. Thank you. From the same guy.
Ted Knight.
Yes, Ted Knight. Yes.
Who was in Psycho?
Ted Knight was not in Psycho.
Yes, he was. He's the cop who opens the door at the end to let the other cop in to give Norman a blanket.
Get the fuck out.
What?
Yep.
I did not know that.
I remember learning this like a while ago. I forgot who told me this, who said it, but I went back and I looked in the
Was it Tobe Hooper?
of Psycho because it might have been Tobe Hooper. But I remember I was saying to myself, somebody plays a cop at the end who has like no lines, but somebody who's a well-known actor. And I looked it up, and it was Ted Knight.
That's like Dana Carvey being the kid in Halloween 2.
Right, yep.
He doesn't say, like, just nods at the reporter. Yep.
Right. Yep. If you can't get an answer anyway. Or whatever. If you can't get permission, get a statement anyway. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, back to the matters at hand. The reason we're doing this Proto-Slasher show is because these movies, some people are going to consider some of them slashers. And we've had this discussion before. We don't want to leave any stones unturned when we do our big slasher show. A lot's going into it. That's why we covered Giallos on episode 40. That's why we're doing Protos now. We want to discuss about these Protos. And the 4 movies that we're covering tonight are Psycho, Blood and Lace, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Intruder. The Intruder, right? Is it singular or plural?
Singular.
The Intruder.
Yeah.
Just making sure. There's so many different movies. Intruder, Intruders, The Intruders. You know what I mean? So that's what we're doing. We're covering those movies tonight. We're going to explain why we feel they're proto-slashers. We're going to explain what we feel in the movie contributed to the whole slasher subgenre. Yeah, and that's about it.
And we're calling the app Night of the Proto-Slasher.
Ted Knight of the Proto-Slasher.
I forget about the Ted.
Top notch.
Now, is it just Ted or is it Teddy?
I believe it's Tobe Knight.
Oh, Tobe, I gotta stop. The reason I had to say that to Oz is because I felt bad for the co-host. I'm a very compassionate human being. When I hear somebody getting their balls busted and it's undeservingly, and they're the correct person, and someone else is messing with them, I genuinely feel bad. You know what I mean? So when the Christopher, I think, the other co-host said Toby, and I said, no, it's Tobe. What are you talking about? I was thinking, I don't think it's Tobe. I feel bad for this poor bastard. So I had to come to his defense. Nothing against
I love how Dave even puts himself in the third person in that conversation. I don't think it's called this. I feel bad for him now. Let me Facebook message the group.
Yeah, Everwing. Yeah.
Let me overwing it.
And we tossed around different ideas. Before people blow their balls on the fact that those are the 4 you picked, yeah, we talked about doing M. You know, Fritz Lang's 1931 M. We talked about doing Peeping Tom. We talked about doing Night of the Hunter. We even tossed around Alice, Sweet Alice. There's a fucking bunch that we could have chosen. These are the 4 we went with.
Yeah, even some really old ones like The Lodger or And Then There Were None. I like that this is a mix of 2 really popular, debated slasher/proto-slasher films in Psycho and TCM, and then 2, I don't want to say lesser known, Intruder, certainly lesser known, and we'll get to that one later on, but Blood and Lace didn't even dawn on me until I think you suggested that one, Dave, and I thought it was a great choice, so I like the mix versus doing all the films that have been covered before.
Absolutely, yeah. We know no one's covered The Intruder because it's been missing for 40 years.
It just got released last month.
Yeah.
Yes, just got released last month, so hopefully we can, shed some light on it.
Is it going to be on your 2017 list, Dave?
Yeah, it officially counts. It got released today.
Best actor, Mickey Rooney.
Top 10, here we come. Yeah. Now, hold on.
Yeah, Mickey Rooney's his favorite male performer of 2007.
Oh, shit. Have you guys seen those 2? Well, obviously, nobody's seen Intruder. Have you guys seen Blood and Lace before?
I had not.
I had not either. I bought the Scream Factory, and it finally gave me a reason to watch it. So
this is great. 2 movies that we've all seen several times,
Yep.
classics of the genre, and 2 movies that we haven't seen. So it's going to be an interesting show.
And I have a revelation, I think, tonight, too.
What?
Yeah. Ooh, I got a what very early in the game.
Wow.
It was not
speaking
Ted White, what? Oh, no, not Ted White. Ted Knight.
Ted what?
Ted White, Ted Knight. What are those
Ted
Teds?
White, I said. What the
it's Tobe White.
God?
That's gonna be the joke the whole night. So Oz, if you're listening, we're just busting balls at this point.
Yeah.
He's probably turned it off at this point. These fuckers are gonna never let me live this down now.
To be or not to be, Hooper?
To be or not Tobe?
Don't ever one-up me again.
Fuck. Can't be helped.
It's so easy when you set the bar right down here.
So easy to one-up Christian.
Oh, you guys are hurting my feelings.
No,
I
I'm just kidding. Dave's singing again.
I know.
And we wanted a little bit of music in this episode.
Yes, gotta have some. And you know what? See, at least we're having fun talking about Tobe Hooper, where a lot of podcasts right now, it's a very melancholy thing. You know what I mean? So at least we happen to get a timely joke. I mean, he happened to mention Tobe Hooper and the Tobe thing, and I listened to that episode 2 weeks ago, you know, and it was recorded before the passing of Tobe. So, you know, that happened, and this just happened. Don't blame me now. I didn't say anything on the air. Don't you motherfuckers blame me on this one.
No.
But
Can I give you guys a quick trivia question?
Sure.
What was the record that was on Norman Bates's record player in his parlor?
It's Beethoven, EROSA or something like that, or EROISA.
Oh, I didn't need the record. You're partially right. It's not Beethoven. It was actually Beethoven.
Oh, wow.
Beethoven Bell.
Beethoven Bell. Now he's one up in me, Christian.
You guys should keep setting them up for me. I'm just, you know, I'm holding the bat. Okay. So, do we want to talk about proto-slashers just a little bit and what? Because there is no real definition of proto-slashers. We looked it up on Wikipedia. It does not exist.
You can't even find a definition of proto-slasher.
If you type it into Google, they'll give you, everybody has their 25 list, the 10 best unseen, this, that, and other thing. And there's lists that I'm like, okay, those are good movies, and I can understand them. Like, there are lists that had M, and then there were none on there. And then there were lists that also contained movies that I had even heard of before. And
Which list had none on them? All right, continue. That was terrible.
Woo! Yeah, so much for no fucking around show.
Can we start over?
We're almost there. We're almost there to no fucking around. Almost.
But there are a lot of lists, and, you know, we chose the 4 because we quite frankly think that these are 4 great examples. The Intruder was something new based on the fact that it just got released now. It was lost. As some call it, quote unquote, a forgotten slasher.
It actually says Proto-Slasher because I own the movie, and it says Proto-Slasher on the back of the disc.
Really?
It says 1975 Lost Proto-Slasher.
And we've had arguments. That's great to see. So perfect. So it's a proto because
It's
they
literally on
self-describe.
the release. So
Self-described. And we argued this because, you know, some people have argued if a proto is a prototype of a style, then what becomes the actual official first slasher? Some people will say Halloween. We decided it was Black Christmas.
Yeah, we did. Much to my chagrin, but it's the truth. It is the truth. It has the most elements that we saw going forward. So, proto-slashers, in essence, to my definition now, this is just what I'm saying, that proto for prototype, there's things that eventually came to be what was known as a slasher. Little pieces, little, you know, parts of the film that we would see later on, but combined. Like, a slasher has them all combined, where these movies just have maybe an element of that. You know, that's how I look at it, that they're prototypes. And again, we've discussed this privately and online with people saying, well, if you're calling Black Christmas the proto-slasher, or if you're calling Black Christmas the first slasher of 74, then how can a movie in 75 and a movie in 76 be proto-slashers? And this is my answer. You guys, you know, take it the way you want to take it and have your own explanations, if you will. What I feel is that just because Black Christmas is being credited as the first slasher doesn't mean that a movie that came out after isn't going to still be the exact same style as a movie released in 72. They're not aware of Black Christmas, maybe. They're not doing it, so they could still be proto-slashers, in my opinion. Maybe I'm not saying it the right way, but you guys...
No, that makes perfect sense. And I also think that because there's no strict definition, I mean, we're listening to people who are defining this is the first slasher, this is the first slasher. And I know it's not always about the timing, but if you're recognizing whatever year the first slasher is, everything before it is not technically a proto if you personally recognize it as a slasher. Like, we're going to talk about The Intruder, and it's close to a slasher. It's listed as a proto, though. It's pretty close to a slasher, though.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty close, but so are all these movies. Texas Chainsaw is close to a slasher.
See, and I never got that with Texas.
No?
I never got that with Texas.
I used to argue for it. I used to argue for it because of teenagers being picked off one by one. Now, the reason I don't think it's a slasher is because this is defense. They are coming to them. Leatherface isn't out stalking and searching to kill people. Leatherface is inside the house, and people keep coming into his house, and he's only doing what he knows to do. To him,
self-defense.
Get out of my house.
They're going to steal my skin mask.
I mean, what do you guys think, Texas Chainsaw? I mean, see, what were you going to say about it? That you thought that it could have been a slasher at one point.
Really, I guess that whole series is an odd series, Texas Chainsaw we're talking about. Because I was even arguing that part 2 is a slasher, but it really isn't. And it goes into this whole other realm, I think, of more like the backwoods crazed killers.
Backwoods cannibal films.
Yeah, and because it doesn't really play out like a slasher, the slasher being what Black Christmas is and eventually what Halloween was and then Friday the 13th, etc., etc. The only argument I can use against Black Christmas is there's that 4-year difference between the official release date of when Black Christmas came out and when Halloween came out. That's 4 years, whereas the gap was definitely shorter between Halloween and the craze of the 80s slashers. Really what you can attribute that to is the sheer success of Halloween. And I think everybody at that point, as we well know, were just cashing in on that success. I will still argue that Black Christmas is the official sort of blueprint. Everything had been laid out. That's the blueprint that went forward to create the slasher film. Not the prototype at that point, the actual blueprint.
Yep. And it's close. Black Christmas is close. It has a prototype feel, but there's enough there that we decided to call it the first. And people want to call everything a slasher. And we don't want to call everything a slasher. We want to be as precise about this as we can. We want to put on the best show we can for 50. So we don't want to call every damn thing a slasher. We don't want to call Giallo a slasher. And we don't want to call Proto-Slasher and certain other films. So that's why we said let's go to North America. And I think it's going to work. I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt the list to leave a few out that we maybe wish we could put in there. And when the time comes, we're not discussing what's going on the list. If one of you guys put Texas Chainsaw 2 on the list, I'm not going to argue it. There's not going to be any arguing on this show. It's our opinion. To me, I'm not putting on the list. And maybe at the beginning we'll say, hey, there's some movies that people consider slashers. I do not, and I'm going to tell you 4 or 5 of them now out of the gate. That's what I've been planning to do, because there's some that I think for a fact at least one of you guys is going to put on your list that I don't consider a slasher. So even between the 3 of us, we've tried to narrow it down as best we could. It's not easy, but everything cannot be a slasher. People seem to want it to be that way, but it's not.
There's no definitive right answer here. There's no council out there defining exactly what's proto, what's slasher, and it's science and it's written in stone. So it's always going to be a source of argument. We interpret it the way we want to interpret it, the best we can.
And why Black Christmas is, in my opinion, the definitive first slasher is because all the elements that we see being loosely used here are combined into that film with all the elements that a slasher movie has.
Yeah.
You know what makes it a slasher the most to me is Margot Kidder's kill. Like, if it was just somebody being choked by a bag, and what else we get in that movie? It's not
a killer,
slasher.
not a killer, just a bag, like a floating bag.
It's not a slasher, it's a bagger, right? You have to have sharp objects, I think, as part of it. Different tools, and I think that when she gets killed, that's what solidifies it for me. That's just me personally.
Yeah, that's a slasher kill for sure.
And it is a killer stalking a house full of sorority sisters. They're not coming to him, because we could argue there's blunt instruments used in Texas. You can argue everything. We can argue this till we're all blue in the balls across internet land. The reality is that some other show can argue it a different way. This is how we propose it, and this is what we believe to be how we're moving forward with our argument.
Yeah, and if you don't agree with us, just give money to our Patreon.
Yeah. And I always say, politely, go fuck yourselves.
Yeah, like a good Canadian.
Yeah.
Politely. Yeah. Yes. And then you got to say sorry when you're done.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, I think that's about all we wanted to say. We just wanted to put it out there. We take it seriously, but we're not going to sweat. If you think something's a slasher, that's your prerogative. We're going to give reasons why we think things are proto and things are slashers and what have you. So, but we are taking the show seriously. Number 50 is the biggest show we'll probably ever do. Unless 100 gets crazy, but that's a long time off. So yeah. So let's get into this. Do you have anything else before we want to get into this?
Are you going to do a thing, Brandon, or no?
Oh, is that mine?
I don't know. Fucking 45 shows. He doesn't know by now. His fucking lead in.
And he's looking around. He's looking around you just assume he's looking at his fucking notes, about to read something off.
Oh, I was playing the round of Everwing. You know me. All right, Psycho, 1960, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Am I saying that right, Oz, or is it Hitchcock? just PM me to let me know. A Phoenix secretary embezzles $40,000 from her employer's client, goes on the run, and checks into a motel run by a young man under the domination of his mother.
Nice.
That's a good sub.
Yeah.
I like that, actually.
Yeah, that is good. It's not spoiler. It's keeping the shine off of Norman. You know what I mean?
And you know we're going to spoil these. So I mean, all of these movies, well, other than The Intruder, have been out and about for a long time. So maybe The Intruder we might save the final few moments, but I almost don't want to. I got to talk about it, but
yeah, you had 57 years on Psycho. If you haven't seen it by now,
right? And if you haven't, and you're listening to the show, please go watch the movie.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, I'll say it right now that 2 movies tonight are in my top 10 horror films.
Yeah.
So you know where I'm going. I don't know about you guys, but
one of the 2 films is definitely in my top 10 horror films.
And I'm with you, Dave. And these views only help solidify that. They were always up there. They were always up there. But now they've solidified, and the revelation will be that I believe Psycho is my favorite horror film ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've come to that. I keep tossing it around, and I just fucking love this movie. And even the faults I love in the movie. And and I will tell you this. I told the boys this right before we started recording, and I'll tell the listeners out there. There's a book called Alfred Hitchcock and the Making of Psycho by Stephen Rebello. If you're a fan of this film, seek out that book. Sorry, you must have been listening to a playback of Cinema Attack again. I give it to my kids too. Can't sleep here. Cinema Attack. Fuck NyQuil.
Don't talk shit now. We can't talk shit about Derek. He moved up in the Patreon. He moved up a tier. So.
No, that was directed right at Brandon.
Well played, sir.
No, but you got to get this book. It's actually a quick read. It's everything you want to know about Psycho, from the writing of the actual book to the screenplay to the production, every aspect of the production to the marketing, to the release and success. So
nice. You know what? Remember that movie that came out, Hitchcock, a few years back?
Oh, I love that movie. I loved it.
That movie, I did too. It was really good. I've only seen it once. I really have to revisit it. But that movie at one time, that was the title of that movie, Alfred Hitchcock and the Making of Psycho. So I wonder if that movie was based specifically directly off of that book there.
To be totally honest, it's a better, it's a long title, but it's a better idea of what you're going to get from that film, because that's exactly what it was. And what a great look at the making of that. And it's based on that, because the writer is Stephen Rebello, as well as John J. McLaughlin, sorry. And so it is based on this book, funny enough.
There you go, see? How about
Look
that?
at
We
that.
figured it out. Yeah, nice. That's cool. I got to read that. Definitely, definitely. I'm glad you mentioned Robert Bloch because he never seems to get credit. Everybody, and I'm not taking away from Hitchcock, please, but I'm just saying, anytime you hear about Psycho on a podcast or anywhere, it's always Hitchcock Perkins. You know, it's Hitchcock. You never hear about that it was based on a novel. I don't know how many people know that, and the novel is a little bit different. The character, and I don't want to get too deep into it because we don't want to be here all night on one movie. We're doing 4, but the character of Norman is different in the novel than
He's a drunk.
He's a drunk. He's overweight. He's middle-aged. He wears glasses. You just broke my glasses. You know?
That's where it came from. If a lot of people don't know, that's the source material.
Who body slammed him though in the book?
Oh, I think Arbogast got body.
Yeah, Arbogast.
Arbogast.
So
Arbogast.
no, and the other main thing was like the shower scene ended with it said the knife came down and cut off Mary's scream and her head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beheaded. That's
So,
good.
yeah.
That sounds good.
Cool.
Wow.
So the book was considered, it was a modern success, and I think what ended up happening was it was considered kind of sleazy and not something mainstream, but it was selling. And when Hitchcock got his hands on this, he ordered people to go out and buy as many copies of the book as possible so that other people would grab it. And that's, I mean, some people know this history, some people don't. We won't get too much into the history of this movie, but I mean, funny enough, the movie itself has been sort of dissected over and over and over again, and we'll get there as well. But it's so interesting, sort of the making of this and how it came about, for sure.
Oh man, yeah, and then when it actually debuted, and how they weren't letting anybody in after the movie started, and they got away with it. They got away with it. Hitchcock said he went to Paramount and said, I don't want anybody to freaking enter this movie once it started. And they didn't think that theaters were going to cooperate. And they did. And they even sent test people. They sent their own people. They hired actors, a pregnant woman and a guy, to go to the freaking thing an hour into the movie and say, hey, my wife's pregnant. That's why we're late. Can we get in? And they were denied. So they even tested them out. And they said, don't do this. Did you see the sign where it says, no one will be admitted, not even the president, not even the Queen of England, God bless her?
Hey, do you have... So you must have. So do you have the documentary? I have the collector's edition DVD. So it's a little dated, but do you have the is that the documentary you watched? Because that was all in the documentary. It has Clive Barker, and he signed my copy.
In the very
actually.
beginning, smoking a cigar.
Yeah, and he's talking about how the book was a lot more graphic than the actual movie.
Yep.
Sort of, because we're talking about a time. So what Hitchcock got away with at that time is beautiful. And he knew. So he was saying it was a manipulation. He wanted to get away with this. Like, they never showed a toilet on the screen, and there's a flushing of the toilet. The suggestion of nudity. There really is nudity there if you really look, but it is suggested more.
Oh, I looked.
Yeah.
You freeze framed each
I
part,
freeze framed Sam every time I saw him.
So you're still on the opening.
Little Sam Loomis, yeah, he's going through it.
How about the fact that even after the project's complete, he wanted to scrap it until the music was added? I mean, and he obviously, everybody to this day credits the music for being, you know.
But Bernard Herrman's a genius with this one. Yeah. This is like he's done amazing work, but this is the one that everybody sort of remembers thoroughly. I mean, it's amazing. The strings. He said he wanted to do it simplistically.
All strings, yeah.
He said he wanted to make it black and white music in the sense of like to accompany the black and white film.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, there you go.
He wanted to scrap it. I know, that's a great point, Brandon. He was going to trim it down for his TV show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah. That's who worked on the film. He got a lot of people from the show to work on it because he didn't have the budget.
Yeah, well, he financed it himself, I believe.
Yeah.
So that was it. It was under $1 million, and they didn't think he could do it. And he brought in the people from Alfred Hitchcock Presents and casted the right people for damn sure.
And he took a percentage of the film instead of his usual salary.
Well, he was his money that he put up pretty much.
Yeah.
So it was like a lot. Like, he was really worried it was going to flop,
which is crazy.
It is
it's
crazy.
Good. Looking back on it now, I mean, just to think that there was concern about that. And did you see that part in the documentary, Christian? So I'm assuming you watched the whole documentary.
I watched the whole documentary as well because I was just like, I haven't watched the special features on that since I got the DVD.
I also want to plug the Psycho Legacy documentary, which covers them all, which is also very good, which is a lot of the same information, but is even more in depth. But it's very good. But this one, the doc that we saw, The Making of Psycho, it came on the DVD. It's now on the Blu-ray, and it's like 90 minutes long. Very informative. But did you see what he said? That one part, the screenwriter was there because he got the guy to adapt it for the screen.
Yeah.
And they got the first guy who did Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and he didn't like. They said it ended up being dull, so they got another guy, and then this guy came in, then he wrote it. And when they watched the movie the first time, it was the not the first draft, the rough cut. I forgot what it was, but it was
the rough cut. Yeah.
Okay, it was before the music was added and something else. So anyway, the guy watched the movie. He's sitting right next to Alfred Hitchcock, and he thought the movie was awful. And he goes, I wasn't going to tell Hitchcock that. He goes, but there I was. And he goes, and I'm sitting there. And he goes, and as we're watching the movie ends. He goes, and Hitchcock puts his hand on my leg and pats it. And he says to me, he goes, don't worry, it's just a rough cut. So he sensed that this guy didn't like the film. I thought that's really cool. You know what I mean? And then,
Joseph Stefano, I think it was.
Yes. And then
I know what's his
in.
name. I think I know.
Yeah. But I mean, it was great to do.
It's crazy. And like, there's so many things, like, you're watching it and you're like, wow, this is not a traditional opening. Like, the opening shot, the pan across, it's a little amateurish, and then all of a sudden,
I love it.
And well, it does look a little amateurish, but for a reason. Again, if you get this book, or if you know the history of it, he wanted this helicopter aerial shot to come in and pretty much go right up into the window. For the most part, they just could not do it. They could not get it right. So they redid it, and he said, it will have to do. We need to get this movie out. And so it works. But I'm just saying, it just, and with the documentary style timing, which is kind of revisited later, I found it kind of funny that was in The Intruder later.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, they took a note right out of Psycho.
Right.
With documenting the time and the date.
They didn't use the typewriter, though, in Psycho.
And it wasn't even needed in this movie to do that. They just did it with the time and whatever. I don't fault. I'll tell you what. There are a few things in this film that I think Christian said earlier, that there are a few faults. It's definitely not going to affect my rating. And when we get to the ratings, I'm going to say something, because I was thinking about this, but we'll get there when we get there. But there are a few little faults and things that it is 1960 and things that don't 100% make the most sense. But it doesn't affect the film in any way. I mean,
yeah, I think in the first half of the film, some of these things are thrown in to almost throw you off the sense of what type of film you're about to watch. I mean, there's a huge shift, from the midpoint of this film, from like the 45-minute mark when she arrives at the hotel to
and that's what I love
the end of the film. And me too.
That's exactly what I love. Like the total shift.
Yeah, the first 40 minutes, you feel like you're watching like a crime thriller from the 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
Right.
At that point, the title sequence is the only, like, wow, it's unsettling with the design of the title sequence, and then you go into this this woman, innocent woman, her boyfriend who she's having afternoon romps with, and robs $40,000 and goes taking off to see him, and ends up at this hotel, and then all the shit just turns and twists, and then we're focused on a whole new character, and it's fantastic.
Yep.
It sure is. And you know what? If they were making this movie nowadays, let's say no one ever adapted this film. Robert Bloch wrote the novel, and they're adapting it now. They would never be that smart. And I'm not knocking modern film, because what we say last year was the best year in horror in a very long time. But I'm just saying that film in general, I guarantee they wouldn't play it that way. You would have seen Norman Bates at the house in the first 5-10 minutes. They would be jumping back and forth between both characters until they met.
I think you're right.
And there'd be a kill or something at the beginning.
Something.
There'd be something.
We would know. We would know he was fucked up.
Yeah, it would start at the Bates Motel. Then, after the opening scene, it would flash to Phoenix, Arizona, Friday, December 11th, 2:43 p.m.
Look at this guy.
I don't know why I wrote it down on here.
You know what I think they would do? I think you would see Norman carrying Mother down to the fruit cellar
or something.
That's something.
Fucking, I love that shot too.
It's great.
I'll just dance around a few things that have probably been dissected over and over and over again, but I think are worthy of bringing up. We see Marion at the beginning, white broad, very erotic for the time frame. But I'm talking beautiful, but I'm also talking about white.
Black.
Everything wearing white, exactly. And then when she
black.
steals the money and gets the money, she's in black. It's been talked about,
awesome.
but great. That's directing, and those are things that a lot of people don't think about, but a good director will think about everything, not just camera angles and whatnot, but costume choices and
then no bra.
And then
You know.
and they said and then when the rain kicks on, there's that scene where she almost looks like Norman Bates in the very last frame of the movie before the car gets pulled out of the water, I might add, where she's thinking and imagining what everybody's saying, and she's driving the car, and then she suddenly gets this sort of maniacal, kind of sinister grin and smile as she stares sort of confidently forward, and it's amazing. I love the acting there. I love that shot, but then it starts to rain, and then of course the wiper blades come, and they say that that's a foreshadowing for the shower murder.
Yeah,
and I always thought that's super
I love that
cool.
whole scene. I love the whole internal monologue. I think it's some of the best scenes in the film.
Yeah,
I agree. Now, do you guys all feel the way I do, that it's all imagined? None of those conversations actually took place.
No.
They're all in her head.
Yeah, it's her playing out the scenarios in her head.
Yeah.
You know how when you sometimes...
Sure you guys...
Yeah, I see it as like when you sometimes daydream and you're like playing out scenarios in your head. Like that's what she's doing. She's like, well, he would say this, he would say that.
No, and that's why it's great. And supposedly Hitchcock was actually saying it to her while the scene was being shot, feeding her all the lines, and then, of course, the overdubbing and whatnot. But beautifully done. The menacing cop, the angles used. They're going to throw a fake mustache on like Sleepaway Camp, but they decided to put glasses on him instead. I mean, that was exactly what he said. I think we're going to do the Sleepaway Camp mustache, but then
his name was Officer Angela.
Well, wait, didn't Angela play a cop in part 4?
Oh, my Lord. There we go. Comes full circle.
Been sleeping on the side of the road, you know? Frankly, yes, you know? And how about the way she talks to the cop? What balls on her? I would never, ever think of speaking to a cop the way she did. That's
well, not today.
You'll get pistol whipped.
Shot if you talk to the cop like that.
Right? Oh, fuck. She's like, well, you know, you're wasting my time. She's like, I'm like, what? This
is 1960 cops.
Even a beautiful woman in mud on. I'll say it again. I can't believe how hot she is. She really
stunning.
Dude, I have nothing against Jamie Lee Curtis. But when I look at her, I don't see Jamie Lee Curtis there at all. She must look just like Tony Curtis. She must not look at all like her mother, because I don't see that whatsoever when I look at Janet Leigh.
Except when they scream. You guys did see, I think we might have talked about on the show, a year or so ago, she recreated the Psycho scene. I thought that was kind of cool.
No, that was very cool. She's like, I've seen that movie so many times, she says.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. But man, I can't believe how beautiful she is, really. I notice it more and more every time I watch. In this movie, Texas Chainsaw I've seen like 50, 100 times. So many times. This movie, again, it's in my top 10. My fascination with this movie has only been in the last 5 to 10 years. So I've probably seen it 20 times. You know what I mean? It's not as much as Texas Chainsaw, but I think I like it more than Texas Chainsaw. I really love the film, and I'm in that period right now where I'm watching it a lot, and every time I watch it, I love it more. I've already had that experience with Texas Chainsaw years ago, and I'm not knocking it at all, but I'm right in that love affair moment now when I watch this film. Like, I notice new things, and we haven't even mentioned Anthony Perkins yet, and just the conversations he had, not even just in horror, in cinema. One of my very favorite scenes, and a pivotal scene for this film, is the first time we see Norman in the dining room or in the back room,
in the parlor,
talking to Marion. I think it's magnificent.
It is.
The dialogue there is great. The interaction is fantastic.
Oh,
and to me, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm just saying everything about it is fantastic.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, ultimately, that conversation that they have, it sways Marion's character, and it almost makes what follows more tragic than originally, because of
yes.
The whole talk of, I forgot what was the line.
Private trap. I had my own private trap I stepped into that I.
Yeah, we all have our own private traps that we step in.
Dude, the dialogue, everything that comes out of Norman's mouth. Every time you hear people quoting Psycho, 90% of it is from there. Boy's best friend is his mother. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Yeah.
And the way he can flip on a dime, like where he's normal and sympathetic, and then all of a sudden he leans forward and he's like, "You mean a madhouse?" And he goes into that fucking spiel. Oh, man, so good. What do you know about caring? And the shower is cleansing. It's her
Yeah.
getting clean, obviously physically, but also mentally. She's washing off that negative shit, and she's going to start anew and head back. And then doesn't happen.
Bingo bango.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean,
Isn't it surprising that it's never been colorized? Remember when they were colorizing all the movies? I've seen Night of the Living Dead colorized. I've seen so many black and white classics colorized by Ted Turner when they were doing that in I think the early 90s.
yeah, I thought. No, I guess you're right. I guess they never did do this one.
No?
They remade it and yeah.
Oh. And I'll never watch it. I've never seen it, and I never will.
I watched it. I wanted to check it out. I love Gus Van Sant, but yeah, there's again we've mentioned this before, and it's not worth getting into on this show. It was always one of my favorite Hitchcock films, but I always seem to put Rear Window and Vertigo kind of hovering a little bit above it. Even North by Northwest when I was younger, when I was a kid, North by Northwest. Excuse me. Now I believe Psycho is my favorite of his films.
It's so hard to pick. He's done so
Yeah.
many amazing films.
Yeah, and I love The Birds as well. But that always it's definitely been between Vertigo, Rear Window in this film
Yeah.
as my top three. But anyway, the detective, you guys brought him up. All this, like, he was a great character.
I loved him.
Yeah.
And his death is iconic as well. We always talk about the shower scene, but his death is really fucking creepy. Like, the suspense built up for it as he's ascending the staircase, and the overhang shot of when Mother comes out with a knife. Oh, it is.
And who's ever seen a grown man tap dance all the way down 15 steps to his death?
Gregory Hines those.
Yeah, he brought in the noise. He brought in the funk.
It was White Heat. White Knights. What was that show?
He attacked the block.
Knife?
He was attacking the block.
It was a Ted Knight.
I want to see someone do that to music. That's what someone should do, like a tap dancing fucking routine. Play the
We're in the
music
money. We're in the money.
Yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't been spoofed, but it's
We'll
even
put that
though
up on our Patreon.
even though it looks awkward to today's eye, it's very unsettling and very jarring.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Especially given the quickness with which he's slowly walking up the stairs, and all of a sudden you see the door creak open and Mother come out and I love how he flusters Norman.
Oh, another thing. That scene also, another amazing scene in this film is him and Arbogast. That whole
Everything he says, he's just getting Norman to
the stuttering and everything.
The stuttering, like I'm doing right now. To stutter and to
stutter and frick,
That's why you hear the Norman Bates of our show.
See, I said at the beginning of the show, he's the Norman Bates of Orphelia. See?
Norman Bricks.
Norman Bricks and Tobe. What else is there? I mean, did you guys realize that the part with the car in the swamp, that it was a one-take fucker?
So it actually stopped?
Well, it was planned, of course.
Yeah, of course.
That was the plan, but the reason is because they had to pull it in with a crane, and then they had a something below the swamp that it sat on, and then they lowered it. But the reason it was a one-take fucker is because if there's a problem, then they got to pull the thing out again and clean it off and do it again. So luckily, it worked out perfect. But I didn't know that until today that it was a one-take fucker to do that shot.
Well, I mean, he was really trying to film this fast. 30 days, I think it did 39. Even by the standards of back then, it was done very inexpensively, very quickly.
Yeah.
So, what about the cop and his wife? Great secondary characters. Like they don't have a lot. I think that some of their stuff got on the cutting room floor, but it was great because they do the reveal. Like if you saw Norman Bates' mother, then who's that lady buried in?
But didn't they wait a little long? They kind of had a full conversation. The wife hears Lila talking about his mother, and why didn't you just say his mother's dead, right away? Like, no, let's just hear him out. And, then with.
Remember though, he's a cop. He's a sheriff. He wants to hear the whole story. What if these people are fucking batshit crazy? He wants to hear them stumble, or he just wants to hear their entire story before he puts anything in it. That's how a cop would do it. And here's what I think is done so well. The way it's exposed. The way he says. Because at the time, you're thinking, well, maybe his mother really is alive, and there's something afoot here. There's something at play. You're not thinking what the reveal is. Yeah. No one was thinking that. You know what I mean? So I like how they throw that extra bit in there for, so you're wondering what the hell is happening here. And did you guys know that when they casted this movie, Alfred Hitchcock sent out casting calls for a Mrs. Bates because they wanted everybody in Hollywood and everyone around to believe that there was a character, Mrs. Bates, so they got thrown off. I mean, just to think to do things like that.
Yeah. Well, you did that, and he had a director's chair with Mrs. Bates printed on it for extra publicity as well, so that everybody just assumed there was a Mrs. Bates, and then they had the voice casting for her later. But Hitchcock had the best line, and you could pretty much use this for any naysayers of movie logic, and he just says, logic in film is dull. Because he says logic is dull, meaning like if you always want to go the logical route, you don't actually have excitement in a movie. And I think I love that. I mean, obviously things have got to
look
come
even
together,
even Sam and Lila's explanation for what's going on is all logical and well thought out. Oh, okay, Norman probably did something because he wanted the money that she was carrying because he wants to get out from under his abusive mother. It's so logical, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
it couldn't be further from the truth.
Right. These are crimes of passion, not profit, as the psychiatrist says at the end.
Which I love that scene, and a lot of people think that scene goes too long. I love it, and he sells it.
Oh, he's great. The psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Terrific. I love it.
And for 1960, that's kind of needed. Or maybe nowadays they wouldn't do that. Maybe
or they'd trim it right down. You'd get the Michael Bay specialty.
Because of Psycho. Because this movie's already come out, so anything else that followed, this was the first movie that did something like that. So as time has passed, we've seen all these crazy twists, and we've seen this and this. There isn't a whole lot of room for the rug to be pulled out from us, under us anymore. So when something like that does happen, we just put it together now. So that isn't even necessary anymore. But it's because of this film. So it's I don't know what the word is for that, but it's just, like what I said for Halloween, in influencing Scream. Same thing. It's just because this movie exists, what else can you do? That's something I noticed. The first time, Norman, when Marion checks in, Norman hesitates for a second and then grabs key number 1.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking this time. He knows what he's going to do when he does that. And that's the hesitation. Anytime someone goes into room number 1, that's obviously the only room that he's going to do a little peeping Tom action in. So I like that. I never put it together. Like, you know what I mean? That's the reason he hesitated. Because when he does that, it's like Mother's taking over. He's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this because I want to peep on this girl, but Mother might get mad. So I think that's the hesitation.
Yeah.
Little nuances, Oh,
and there's a lot of those little things that you catch on repeated viewings as well.
For sure. And what about the creepiness? This thing that really creeps me out is when Marion goes in the house and she goes into Mother's room, and the way it's filmed, and when they show those hands on that thing, those fake hands, whatever the hell, and the music they play. But the thing that really, the whole scene is creepy to me. But when they show that thing in the bed, that fucking just grosses me out, thinking that a body's been laying in that bed in that position. It's got to stink.
That's how my mattress.
That was her sister. Yeah, that was your mattress. Her sister, you said Marion, but that was Lila. That was her sister.
Yeah, that was Lila.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, I did say Marion. My bad. It's Lila.
Please apologize.
Oh, when we were going into now you're apologizing. I love this. It's great. When we were in film school, they went into detail. Again, it's been talked about death. Her last name, Crane. His fascination with birds and taxidermy and that aspect of it. They left out the necrophiliism of the Ed Gein case, but again, everything was sort of hinted upon. I think grave robbing and whatever was definitely not shown, but obviously has happened.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the movie looks great. Great use of black and white. We talked about Bernard Herrmann's score. It's on the trivia page there. I didn't even realize it was on the IMDb trivia, but after Hitchcock heard the score, he doubled Bernard Herrmann's salary, or almost doubled it.
Yep.
They give him like $34,500.
Amazing.
And said it was a third or 33% of the success was from that. I mean, there was controversy. You guys know that there was controversy. The guy that designed the credit scheme and whatnot, also storyboarder, helped storyboard the shower.
Oh yeah, loose ass.
Yeah, and
not loose ass. Sorry, no, fucking Saul Bass.
Thank you.
Did you say loose ass?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, loose ass. Yeah.
Loose ass.
Brandon's ears perked right up.
I was like, loose ends, where? Point me in that direction.
Oh. But you know what that dude did, Saul Bass? He had to storyboarded the shower scene by writing it down because they didn't have the time to do it when you're trying to, and they even did bring in a new model at one time to try to, cut into the time and to figure it all out. But it was so hard to film the shower scene, and you can only see so much when you put it in front of the camera that Hitchcock wanted to see it storyboarded first and what's going to happen here with the cutting here. And it was set up by this guy, Saul Bass.
Oh, yeah.
But he apparently claimed that he directed that scene, but ultimately it turned out to be bullshit.
Yeah.
It's important what he did. He was a big help to the film, but obviously Hitchcock was there the whole time, at least based upon the testimonials of everybody in the film. I mean, why would they lie?
Yeah, who are you going to believe? The guy that's saying, hey, I directed the scene, or everybody on the set and that had, more to do with the film saying, no, it was Hitchcock. Again, you rely on people to help, and they didn't say he didn't storyboard it. He storyboarded based on discussions of Hitchcock saying he wanted the staccato type look, going to be lots of cuts, and it ended up being 76, right? 76 cuts or something for that.
Wow.
Or 76 camera setups, so I'm assuming cuts.
Another amazing scene. I mean, we can't. What are we gonna do? Blow the shower scene all day? It's been blown to Kingdom Come. What can you say? Now there is one edit in there that bugs me a tiny bit.
In the shower sequence?
Not when the stabbing starts or anything like that. Just when she's showering. All of a sudden she's showering and her head is almost completely dry, and then it cuts for 1 second and then comes back and her hair's so wet that it's black. You know what I mean? It's just a very small nitpick, but I notice it every time I see the film.
Did you say a nitpick?
Yeah, nitpick. N-I-T.
Nitpick. In the shower. Nice.
Ah, nitpick. Yeah, no, we don't see any tit. We don't see any of that stuff. I'll tell you what. They do call it the slashing in the script. When it says, right before that scene, it says slashing. And then it goes into the paragraph and describes what's going on. So, is this the slasher?
Yep, it is.
Did they coin the term slash?
We're going to save it for episode 50.
Ooh, what's this? You're going to go against the rules? You're going to throw a proto in?
No.
Well, we did say, I think we've all agreed that the sequels, well, I'm going to leave 4 out of this, but I'm going to say 2 and 3 are slashers.
Right. Well, 4 is not going to make anybody's top 50, so at least I wouldn't think. You never know, but we don't have the Woodsboro brothers on here. Maybe Andrew. Psycho for the beginning. My number 5 slasher. You never know.
It's a great movie. Seen it again, I had a smile ear to ear, and I was like, you know what? I just fucking love this movie.
Yeah, man.
I love the pace. I love the secondary characters, even the sleazy oil guy at the beginning. I declare. Yeah.
Thirster Rooney?
Yeah.
Thirster Rooney, thank you, son of a bitch.
That's why I get to
do it.
Yeah, Thirster Rooney.
The Monopoly man himself. Yes. He always reminds you of the Monopoly man. Okay. Thirster Rooney. I don't. Yeah, that's great, man. That's great.
I do think the film is even dated for 1960. Like I said, it just reminds me of like 1940 films, but I love it.
Okay.
I love those old Hollywood black and white type films, and even the last scene is very old school like that, and I love it. But it's haunting, the last image.
The last image. Wow.
And the way it sort of transitions to the final scene.
Yeah. What do you think of that final scene? Like, I would have been totally fine with it ending with that shot of Norman.
I feel this is how the movies ended back in those days.
I agree. I think that it was a product of the time. Right?
Yeah.
I think they had to have I think they wanted to put the end down there, and it might have looked cheesy, showing the end with Norman's face there.
Well, you could have faded to black and put the end.
Maybe.
But they put the car coming up. I guess it was just to realize that they've found her.
Yeah.
There's some closure to that.
And maybe there's more in the swamp. There's more cars in the swamp besides that.
Exactly.
They're alluding to that.
He did. The psychiatrist did say, "Are there any missing?"
Yeah.
Two teenage girls.
Two teenage girls. He goes, "You might find them in the surrounding swamp."
Right.
So it probably would have been cooler if they pulled another car out.
Yeah.
Or a matchbox car.
Good old jalop.
Yeah.
And you know what kind of crane they used to pull that car out?
A Marion crane?
Correct.
Or a Lila?
Okay, I'm gonna play something for you guys because I.
Oh, is it a car starting up?
Yes. Yes, it just got pulled from the swamp and it's still able to start. And there's
Marion's
40,000
alive. She drove right out of there. That was it. She wasn't being pulled out at the end. She started it up and drove right out of the swamp.
Beep, beep.
There you go. No, listen to this. I've always wanted to know what the hell Norman is saying on this scene. Now, it's at the very end. It's with the reveal. And he comes running out, and you hear this. Now, I hope this is going to work right. Hold up. That.
I thought it was just screaming, but yeah,
No,
this time it's like no mother.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I had the subtitles on, but I can't remember now.
It just went,
Doesn't say anything. Now, I even have it isolated without the music. Because initially, when this film came, well, because it happened to be on the documentary, so I saw this, and I was like, oh, now that's even better. Now this is a better example. But in the documentary, they were showing it.
You just broke my glasses.
Dave's lost his mind. He's isolating dialogue.
It's like doing fucking detective work.
Well, I couldn't help it because I isolated this the other day, and I watched the documentary today, and I was like, oh, look at that. Without the music, now they'll be able to hear, more clear when I show it on the show. But they said that when that scene was first shot, there was no music. Just for that scene, they weren't gonna. It was just the reveal and that screaming and the other thing. And Hitchcock said, he goes, I think you should put the same music that we put in the shower scene in that scene. And then they did it at his behest. So it wasn't planned. It was just, they filmed it, they watched it, I should say, and that's what he said. So I thought that's kind of cool. But check it out. This is with no sound, no music. Excuse me. No, I'm gonna play you something with no sound.
This is gonna be great.
I'll let you know when it's over. Hold on.
After we finish that.
He sounds like
Norma Bates?
None of it. I think he's talking about our one territory up in Canada.
I don't know what it is.
He said Norma Bates.
None of it.
Norman Bates.
He said Norma Bates.
Norman Bates, motherfuckers!
What the hell are you two laughing about?
It's funny. Here's the funny part. His mouth isn't even moving when this is said. He's got his mouth wide open because he comes out and he has that look on his face where he looks like Anthony Kiedis. And then he continues on and he's coming out and then he's getting tackled and you hear that. He doesn't look like Anthony Kiedis.
He was saying, give it away, give it away, give it away now. That's what he was saying.
Suck my kiss. I think there was something in there. Like, yeah.
I don't understand that. If anybody that's listening can tell us what the hell they're saying there.
He just said, I'm Norma Bates.
I'm Norma. Maybe he says I'm Norma Bates.
Play it again. That's exactly what it said.
I'm Rick James.
Christian, listen. It says I'm Norma Bates, and it says
bitch.
Norma Bates,
I'm Norma Bates, bitch.
Oh, let me try it again. Oh, fuck. Oh.
Norma Bates. I think he's right.
Right? I'm like, I'm Norma Bates.
Norma Bates, bitch. 11 out of 10.
Nice. There you go. Yeah.
Just a great film. 10 out of 10. No question.
Yes. 10 out of 10. Amazing.
Yeah. 10 out of 10.
Awesome.
Full head explosion.
Full head explosion. Hall of Fame.
Mild rumbling of the ears, nose, and throat.
and bowels.
It's a 31. It's an official 31. Now, I was thinking about my ratings, and I wanted to say something to you guys, because JP is very passionate about this, and I respect him for it. And Brandon, you talk about it sometimes, too, with the way you rate and things like that. To me, there are a few tiny flaws in Psycho, but I still have to rate it a 10 out of 10. And the other flaws I'm talking about is when Norman's in the house arguing with Mother, and Marilyn can hear it from way outside. Of course, that would never happen. You watch the film, you're like, well, you just gotta have to accept it for what it is. Nobody can hear that. People arguing in the house, and it's raining, it's way the fuck down there. A couple little things that don't, make perfect sense, but you excuse them. But some people say, well, that doesn't make it a perfect film, so how can you rate it 10 out of 10, yada, yada. Now, if I was to not rate this a 10 out of 10, The Witch to me is a 10 out of 10, and there's no flaws in it. However, The Witch doesn't hit the heights that Psycho hits. You know what I'm saying? To me, the highs in Psycho are higher than what you see in The Witch. I rate them both 10 out of 10. So, you know what I'm saying? That even...
There is no perfect film. There is no perfect film.
I agree.
And so that the flaws bring out its charm as well. And you kind of appreciate that. Some people can't. I know. I'm talking very Shakespearean with my hand, and I'm doing a lot of flamboyant motions, and I'm cupping the balls, everything. It's... but where I'm going with it is like flaws. I said this in the last episode, actually. I said, you know what? I love movies, flaws and all. And if you love a film, you'll forgive the flaws. If you don't love a film, you just, the flaws are just escalated to such a degree that you could be like, and this is why the movie sucks. Doom, boom, 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 boom. And you just list them off. I have no problem. Never cared about the arguing and her overhearing it. Never once entered my mind.
Yeah, I never thought of it. Never thought of it.
You never thought of it when you're watching it, that she could hear the conversations way up into the house of the two?
I thought maybe because the house is high up and they're in the middle of nowhere. Maybe the sound travels further.
Good acoustics, yeah.
Yeah, good acoustics.
Fair enough. Believe me, this is the last movie I'm going to shit on. I'm just saying, I just wanted to put it out there because of the rating. Because like some people say, well, if you don't think it's a perfect thing, then how can you rate it 10 out of 10? You know what I mean? Because I know how you are, Brandon. You talk about the rating.
No, I know. It's very strange because if you start to go back, especially when we review so many films, you start to go back and you could pick films out like, oh, you gave this a 9.5, but you gave this an 8.5, you gave this a 10. Like you could start to rip apart everyone's ratings, and it's all personal. And like Christian said, there really is no perfect film. Somebody's gonna find fault in everything. You know,
could say like the stop motion sucks in Evil Dead at the end, but I love it.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to take any points away from it. You can drive yourself nuts with these ratings. I mean, that's it's a guide, and everybody has an opinion, unfortunately. Right. And the reality is that this is ours.
That's why at the end of the day, you have to. It has to be mostly about your enjoyment factor. If there were technical mistakes, you pointed out the shower scene. I didn't notice it. I wasn't paying close attention. But if there were like horrible cinematography, horrible acting, then of course, even if I love the film, then you got to recognize there's some bad things going on here. But in this case, it's a masterpiece. It really is, and that's why it's recognized as one, because most people see and view it the way I think all three of us did.
Right on. And like, to me, if a movie's in my top 10, it's a 10 out of 10 movie. That's why it's in my top 10. Yeah. That's how I rate film. That's we've had discussions before. I don't want to get into it because we'll go around and who has the time. But some people say, how can you do this? You know what I mean? And when this really, how do you call Friday the 13th 10 out of 10? The acting isn't great. This and that. I don't care. It's a 10 out of 10, and it's in my top 10 films.
Exactly.
That's just the way it is. Well, I'm glad we're all on the same page here. Yeah. We've had discussions before. A lot of times with the 22 Shot Guys, we've had discussions about our ratings, and
it's an endless discussion that you could have because to be honest, my top 10, I've never really done a definitive top 10
of
all time. I really haven't, but I could honestly say after watching this film that I love Hitchcock, so I love everything he does. I love the feel of his films, and I love this one in particular. The performances are fantastic, and Anthony Perkins, he's just he's so good.
and
Anthony Kiedis for that 1 minute.
That one scene.
Whoa! Don't give it away.
Next time you see him come in the room the first time dressed up that way, and he opens his mouth and you got that.
I'm Norma Bates, motherfucker.
Yes, and then he calls himself Norma Bates, right? I'm not Anthony Kiedis. I'm Norma Bates.
Lick my plate.
Lick my plastic paper plate.
We've gone off the rails, but phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Beautiful.
Phenomenal. Thurster Rooney.
Beautiful.
Okay, let's move on. Shall we go into our next movie? Yeah.
You're going to involve us in this conversation? You're just going to ask the questions and answer them yourself?
What do you think, Dave? I think we should. He's like fucking Norma Bates.
We should go on the next movie? Yeah.
That's a good idea, Dave.
Talking to myself. You'll never put me in that fruit cellar again. You think I'm fruity?
I wouldn't harm a fly.
Okay. Yeah, what's our next movie? Blood and Lace?
Okay, next film up is Blood and Lace from 1971. This film is directed by Philip Gilbert.
Cool. It stars Uncle Leo, and it stars Mel from Alice.
Yeah, that's true. And I totally forgot to give the description, but
Well, go ahead. You stuttered, so I picked you up.
I actually didn't stutter. I froze. Let it be known that I froze completely.
Freeze. So you're worse than Norman Bates. Noah Bates.
All right. The film follows an orphan teen who arrives at a remote orphanage run by a madwoman and her handyman.
And
This is a fucking crazy movie.
it is crazy.
This movie's nuts. We're talking about shifting tones in Psycho, or shifting characters and whatever. This movie does it like 3 times, but you can't put it in the same category or league as Psycho right off the gate. But it shifts. We open on this, the opening killer, so we focus on that and Ellie, and then all of a sudden we shift.
Yeah, it's Halloween with a hammer.
This is Halloween intro. This is why this is a proto.
Right out of the gate. Yeah.
Just like Halloween's opening. Killer coming from the outside POV, going into a drawer, not getting a knife, but getting a hammer.
Yeah.
Just like Halloween. It's crazy.
Identical, except for Halloween is all POV, and this intercuts POV with bad shots of the couple with bad 70s lounge music playing in the background, and which is like a staple of these films, it seems. And then close-ups of the door, waiting, the anticipation of it opening, and it finally does. But other than that, Halloween seems like a direct lift of this movie.
I thought the opening music felt off to me. I loved it, but it was ghostly. Didn't it feel like you were watching an old black and white ghost film?
Most of the music in this feels like a bad stock music.
Maybe that's it. I thought that's what the feeling was. I'm like, oh, I'm about to watch a ghost film.
It didn't fit. When there was a fire, when you see a fire and the drapes are burning, the curtains, whatever, and you see it and they're playing this music, that music just didn't seem to fit.
It sounded like Rear Window. Yeah. And it's just like, what the fuck is this? It doesn't match the theme.
Now, between the opening with Halloween and later on, don't tell me that guy didn't look like fucking Freddy.
Oh,
my God. That
guy
looked like Grandpa from Texas Chainsaw, I thought.
It looked like Freddy to me. The
and a combination.
And the face.
This movie is bad shit, but it's bad shit in you've got to see it.
Right.
Everybody's got to watch this.
It's all red herrings.
Yeah, it's all red herrings, and it does keep you guessing. Although, however, when I did see the Freddy knockoff guy, or no, he's not the Freddy knockoff because he came first. When I did see him, I thought he looked just like another character from the film, and it was confusing. I'm like, how come he looks just like him? It doesn't make sense.
What character?
Then when we get the reveal, you see why. But I'm watching it with my wife. I'm like, look, that's him. And I don't want to say the name because I think that people should watch the film, and it's better to not know what.
Yeah,
happened.
This one I don't want to spoil because even though some of the twists I saw coming and I predicted pretty much right away, and
because
I think
of what he looked like. Is that what you're
Because no, actually, I thought it was someone else.
So that twist you didn't get. Don't tell me you got the very last thing that was said in the movie. Don't tell me you even thought of that.
Oh my God, I want to spoil this whole movie. It's so ridiculous that spoiling it, I think, would make people want to see it more, to be honest.
You think so?
Yeah, this movie's batshit crazy.
It is batshit crazy.
It is batshit crazy. I watched it twice because I never saw this before. And I've seen Blood and Black Lace, but I never saw Blood and Lace.
Yeah, why is this movie even called Blood and Lace?
It makes no sense.
It's also called The Blood Secret.
The Blood Secret?
Makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, it does make more sense.
Yeah. So wait, the thing that happened at the end with I was the first person that your mother made.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, I absolutely knew that.
What the fuck?
No, I didn't know that.
I knew that instantly. I did not know the big reveal after that. Before that.
That's the very last.
Yeah, before that. Sorry.
Prosthetic mask and who it was. That was the easy thing because the way he moved and the shape of his face, he looked just like him.
He looked like Walter also. My
wife thought it was another orphan that was stuck in the basement. She goes, "Oh, that's another orphan that's been there for years. That's why he's fighting back."
It looked like Walter, the built guy from the orphanage.
It didn't look like anybody. It looked like just some guy that was hunched over wearing a bad burn mask, and I thought that it was the guy from the beginning that was burned. I think that's what you're supposed to think. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Okay, so the beginning guy, the mom,
it's Mel.
What you find out is the mom gets killed, and then the lover gets killed, and the lover's kind of alive as the burning inferno comes, and then Ellie wakes up from that dream. So
is that not the worst kill ever, though?
It's just badly edited.
Bad.
Well, why didn't they put any sound or anything to it? It was like hard. I thought it was terrible.
It was stylistic. Oh, I didn't mind it
It was
at all.
stylish, but it wasn't. Again, it wasn't edited right with the sound.
It was not edited,
but it was like silent.
Who cares? Because then you get to Ellie, and Ellie is hot.
I
Yeah.
think Ellie's hot. Ellie's nice, but Bunch is a fucking goddess. Oh
Yeah,
my
of course
God.
Dave likes Bunch. Yeah,
Oh,
rapist.
Yeah. I love
So
all these orphans. These orphans are like all like 20-something. And they all go to an orphanage.
Right. The one guy even said,
I'm
almost
21. Yeah, I'm almost 21. I go, what the fuck are you doing there?
Trying to bang these girls, I guess.
Well, he's had
That's
hundreds.
why I was suspicious of Walter, because I'm like, he's 21, he's still in an orphanage. I'm like, something's going on. He keeps running to Mrs. Deer every time something's wrong.
Mrs. Deer
but he
was
keeps
hot, too.
apologizing.
Oh, I
She
agree.
was good
Yeah,
trick.
she kept motherfucking saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
I was beautiful once, and now I look like shit." And I'm not
No,
young. And I'm like,
and
no.
that scene, she looks gorgeous. When she said that, I'm like, you still look hot, honey.
Uncle Leo still looked good.
Uncle Leo looked good. Yeah, Mel looked good. They all.
Jerry, hello!
Before we even get to the orphanage, there's that whole scene with the doctor, some fucking amazing lines in this movie. And one of them is from the doctor in the hospital going, "No one knows who your father is. Your mother knew, but she's dead.
He was so bald. He was so.
You're an orphan now." That's what he says. You're an orphan now. You got to go to there.
And why was that woman so mad at her? Just because she had a dream and she screamed? The nurse came in and says, "We got to get this girl out of here."
I know.
What? Why? What is she doing? Because she had a nightmare?
Yeah, she was screaming in the hospital. It's a quiet zone.
What a fucking bedside manner on her. What the fuck? Get her out of here.
And how much of a slut was her mom? It sounds like in this movie,
But,
she boned everybody in town.
That's,
and then she-
that's the impression. That's what happened.
And then she became a hooker. So she banged everybody for free for a while, and then she turned professional, they said. Because that's what Mel said at the bar when he was talking to the doctor. What's his name? Mr. Mullins. He said, "Well, I saw her before, before she became professional." I was like, what? So
Yeah,
she
and right
became-
when he said that, I knew where that was going.
I could buy that. I could buy that. But you didn't realize that was him he looked 100% identical to him with a mask on. I said, "Why does it look like him? This doesn't make any sense." I'm like, "Is that a mask or is it not?" I was
Oh
like,
my
"And why would it be
Is
him?"
that a masker?
I was like, why is this character
think
even
so.
in the movie? Because there's no point for it to happen. There really is no point for Freddy, burnt, hunched guy holding a hammer, stalking around to even be introduced in this movie at all.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
makes it a proto-slasher. You get, the POV, you get a masked killer.
That is true, but there's no point. Because otherwise the beginning would be the only thing that keeps it going. Because then otherwise it becomes like funeral home or something like that. Because it's just like a creepy orphanage that does some wacky ass shit.
Yeah, but there's a reason for him. Because the guy even said, the guy probably survives who's going to come after you now. So she is the victim, and this guy's coming after her. So I think it makes perfect sense that he shows up. What he does doesn't make sense.
No, but he solves it right away because he even says, I have some ideas when he goes to see her. He knows. He knows.
It's so crazy. It doesn't really play out. Like if you really think about it, when I watched this again, I'm like, there's absolutely no point for this at all. There's really no point for this. But we've jumping all over the place, which is what we do. She leaves the hospital on foot, and it's another weirdly filmed
And
scene
then Mel
where she
tracks her
starts,
down.
yeah, and then like the car is chasing her, and it becomes a car chase scene, and then
And then
he's
a
like,
foot chase.
"Why are you chasing me? Why did you run?" And stuff like it was just a weird thing, and that's when we get introduced to Callan Carruthers, who, if you watch the movie again and freeze frame it or just look at it, looks like Andrew Dice Clay in certain scenes. Take away the hair, and
Mel?
he looks like his face, Andrew Dice Clay. Yeah, Mel. In that earlier in some of those shots.
That's great.
Another dead giveaway is, when he's like, I knew you from when you were a child. Remember you used to come to the theater I run? I'm like, he used to run a theater. Did
Yeah,
Dave go to the show and see Carruthers there? I'm like, they're throwing this stuff in there because it's gonna play into something later.
Well, he comes back too many times just to have like a little interest in what Ellie's doing, and
I did like when he asked her, did you see the guy's face? And she's like, yeah, ugly face, kind of like yours.
Yeah.
She was a real wisecracker.
Yeah.
her best line of the movie is when Mrs. Deer says, "Ellie, this is Tom Credge, our handyman. He looks handy, all right."
Yeah.
No, the best line was right after that when he went, Ellie, hello!
Hello. How about when he told the one kid, "You'll never eat again"? When he's carrying the fucking.
Yeah. Go back upstairs or you'll never eat again.
Yeah, Pete. That was what's his name? Dennis Christopher, who was in Fade to Black.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah, that
really?
was his. This was his film debut.
Hey, we're jumping all over the place. When we first cut to the orphanage, Dear Lodge had just been talked about. Suddenly we slam cut to it, and this kid's trying to escape. And that's when we get introduced to Tom Cruise, and it's a big chase scene with all that stock lounge music kicking up. It sounds like, you know what I said? It sounds like swashbuckler music. It sounds like stock fight scene music, and that's the chase music. And he chases him by grabbing a fucking meat cleaver, running after him. The guy is in a white shirt and hides behind a tree that's like thinner than him. And he's just hiding behind it, like, he's not going to find me here, which he sees him immediately. And then the guy's hugging the tree, so he throws the cleaver at him and chops his hand off in one fell swoop.
I started laughing at that scene because I was like, he was not intending to chop his hand off, I don't think.
Well, he almost goes like, whoa.
So what are
And
you
then he
trying to do?
loses him under a little bush. He crawls under a bush and he can't find him.
The shift to that scene is so what the fuck that it takes you right out of the movie. Because you're like, what is going on here? And then, of course, then you get sort of a payoff in the sense of what's going on. But it's such a fish out of water sequence. Like, I loved it because it's, like I said, and I'm continually saying, batshit crazy.
Oh, it's nuts. And Mrs. Deer is absolutely crazy. I mean, she's keeping her husband on ice.
Who hasn't decomposed at all?
Or as I call it, Jameson on the rocks.
And how do we know it's a freezer? Because when they open the door, there's a blue light inside, so it must be cold.
Yeah, Mr. Bones comes to check the infirmary. Everybody's frozen stiff, blue as can be, and he looks in and he's like, oh, poor kids.
Yeah,
they got a cold. Oh, I don't want to go in there and look at him. I might catch a cold. Okay, all right. So
but Mrs. Deer doesn't think they're dead. She does talk to them as if she thinks they're alive still.
Yeah, she's not.
That's the problem with the film, is that part is not explained. Like, she says one thing about life and death. She goes, they're dead. She goes, well, they're not dead, but they're not alive, but they're not dead either. So we kind of get the gist that she's freezing these people. These kids try to run away from the orphanage, plus her husband who's passed. She's taking these people, freezing them. Then sometimes we see them later, and there's like a cut in their neck, and some blood's coming out. But
seeping out.
Why?
Because Tom's been throwing cleavers around.
So the cold slows the blood, but it doesn't make any sense. This could have played out very similar to Psycho, but it wants to be too many things. It has too many characters. It's jumping all over the place. You get the crazy handyman. It could have been Norma, Mrs. Deer, or Norman, Mrs. Deer. Ellie could have been Marion Crane, and it could have opened with that double murder. She then arrives at this orphanage, and then we figure out all this craziness is happening at the orphanage. And that's why I said I actually would like to see this film remade. You could actually take something out of this ludicrousness, and is that a word? Take something out of that and make something.
That's a new rapper, I believe.
Yeah, ludicrousness. I'm more ludicrous than the last.
The Looch.
On the ludicrousness.
The Looch.
The
Looch. Lucky Looch.
No. Yeah, it's him. No, but look at
the Looch is in the hooch.
Oh, fuck. What movie was that? Funeral Home? Take a movie like Funeral Home and take a movie like Mountaintop Motel Massacre. And it's similar to this. But those films explained it better. It didn't have to be as outlandish as they made it. Because they only give us half the story. She's freezing bodies, but does she have a connection to the occult? Is she connected to a scientist, a mad scientist?
She's just nuts, and she just thinks at some point she's going to be able to bring them back to life.
But she makes it sound like it's a matter of fact, like she has the answers, but she never says anything.
Yeah, well, again, like you guys have said, that's the issue, is that there's too many bad guys. You know, we got her, we got Tom, we got the mass killer who doesn't show up till 51 minutes into the film. I marked it because I'm like, why all of a sudden at 51 is there a...
Because it makes
you call him Freddy Krueger. I was like, why is Grandpa outside? But, and I get it. They're trying to do it for an ultimately, big payoff, which I kind of like the payoff. Because even when it's revealed, even if you, like I said, I didn't know. I thought it was someone else under the mask.
Wow, I couldn't believe that.
Even though you knew who it was, once he revealed himself, I thought his solution was going to be different. I thought he knew. I thought he was doing it because he knew.
let's run off together.
I thought he knew. I thought he was protecting her because of the actual connection to her, not because of his feelings for her.
Oh, you thought he was going to come in and they were going to overthrow Dottie and Tom and say, now we can rule the galaxy as father and son, or father and daughter?
Yeah.
Well, that might have been a better ending. And how does he have full access to the orphanage? He puts a fucking burn mask on and it carries a hammer. It's hunched over. Suddenly he's got total access to everything. He gets to pop in everywhere he wants to go.
He's
up and down.
In the attic.
Yeah.
He's up in the attic with Jennifer. What's he doing with her up there?
Yeah, poor Jennifer.
Not giving her water. No one's giving this kid water.
Right? What?
That's a cruel scene.
We're jumping all over to the listeners out there. There's a character who's tied up in the attic, and she's just like, I'm so thirsty. I've been here for days.
How about the fact that Tom practically rapes Ellie, and then 2 seconds later, he's like, where's my hammer?
Yeah. And she
just acting like nothing happened.
Yeah, she acts like she's afraid of the hammer, which is interesting considering what's going on here. Like, I think she is unaware of what's happening. They play it out like she's completely aware and that she knew all along, but why is she having these dreams, nightmares, I should say, and why is she fearful of holding a hammer? She fears the hammer.
Suppression.
So I think it's what? Suppression?
Suppression. And I think it's
so
brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I don't think she's aware.
That's something I didn't see coming. Is that the reveal you're talking about?
That's the reveal I'm talking about, which I thought was a great reveal because it's so obvious from the beginning. Even
you thought that was obvious?
It's obvious when you know. When you think back, you're like, well, this was said, and then this was said, and but this dream is happening. Like everything that's happening, it's like this is the only logical explanation for it.
This movie, it's on Shudder, is it not?
I had to watch it on YouTube.
I had the Blu-ray as well, but for some reason I thought it was on Shudder. I hope it is because I want our listeners to watch the film if they haven't. If you go on the B, it says 0 on Prime. So usually when it says that, it's either on Prime itself or it's on Shudder if it's a horror movie. So
I'll tell you 2 things that I really enjoyed. I liked as it was playing out is when Attic Girl gets to do the old Lockerino on the freezer. Yeah. That was good. And then at that same moment, Ellie runs out and tells everybody, dude from Fade to Black and everybody else, Tom I guess it was.
And they sit there.
Pete and Walter, and says, guys, run! They're trying to kill us. But then he's like, let's go! And Walter just goes, where, Pete? And they all look like we don't want to go because this is kind of like home. And I actually kind of like that. At first, I thought the first time I watched it, I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? This is ridiculous. But then I kind of was like, no, I could dig it. They're kind of like, this is where we're doing our chores. This is all we've got. This is our home.
Oh.
And I was
actually
driving. Yeah, I was like, this is kind of like a touching moment in this fucking bizarre movie.
Interesting. At first I was frustrated.
I think it plays into the theme, even with Ellie, that this is sort of like a heartbreaking film in the sense that these characters are sort of doomed before the film even starts. We're watching a bunch of doomed characters. Really, every character in this film is doomed. Like,
so many kids want to run away from this damn place.
So many kids want to run away, but in the end, they realize there's nowhere to go, at least here. They're being abused and stuff, but they're being fed, they're being sheltered, they're being frozen.
You should be a politician. They're abused, but hey, they got fed.
Right, this guy. Right. They're barely being fed. The one kid's fucking starving. The guy, he gets
Pete.
out of hand.
That's Pete. Yeah, he steals a fucking roll.
Starving.
I love when he gets bitch slapped for stealing a roll.
You took an extra roll. Bah! I had that in my notes too. I go, Tom's such a prick. If he can beat somebody else up, he'll beat someone up. I loved, like you guys already mentioned, The Mask. That was total Scooby-Doo. I thought this predated Scooby-Doo. It didn't predate Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo started in '69. That was so Scooby-Doo-ish. Scooby-Dooby-Dooby.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's Scooby-Doo meets Freddy.
But The Mask even makes sense to a comment that's made earlier in the film.
Correct, and I got that the second time.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, now it makes total sense that he would have access.
Yeah, why it would even be present in the film.
Yeah.
So there's enough there, even though the film is, I don't want to say it's a mess because I actually kind of enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it.
It's a fun film, but there is too much. But if you focus on each thing and try to dissect each little thing, everything makes sense. It just would have been a even better film had, like Christian said, they focused on maybe one character instead of having 3 or 4 bad characters right off the bat.
Yeah.
There are scenes between her and that girl that you love, Dave, the 16-year-old that puts
she was
out.
30.
She was 30.
Really,
I know. She was. Everybody was older. I think Ellie was only 22. They're all beautiful in this movie, to be honest. But There's a whole cat fight scene. They try to get into their relationship. Like, you didn't need it in this type of film. And then it shows the jealousy between the two girls, and they're fighting in the bed. That's why I say there's so much of this craziness.
Don't you ever edit a cat fight?
You gotta you gotta check the film out. But I'm not coming in excessively high by any means on this movie. I tried to rate this as fair as I could. In fact, I created a rating for this.
Holy shit, I did too.
Yeah.
You're going 6.75?
No, I'm not. But I created a rating for it. I don't know if we're there yet, but I have created a rating for it.
I don't know what else I have to say. I did enjoy it. You know what? Some of the shots in the attic reminded me of Black Christmas.
Yes.
Right? So another reason this is a Proto-Slasher. Some of those shots, things like that. You know, we didn't talk about the guy that's coming over all the time. We talked about Mel, and he's a private investigator. And we talked about, the people at the orphanage. We haven't talked about the doctor who's going there and checking up on these orphans, and he knows that people are going missing, and he has a relationship with the woman that runs the place, Dottie, and she kind of, pieces him off with a piece of ass. You know what I mean? But eventually he's like, how come so many children are going missing here? What is his name? Mr. Mullins. He's the guy. So he's investigating. So there's something, something strange afoot at this orphanage, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it, and there's people from the outside and people from the inside trying to figure it out, and it makes for an interesting film. It's like you said, when it cuts to that Uncle Leo scene and he throws the freaking thing and cuts the guys, it does come out of nowhere. But then it kind of settles down where the majority of the film takes place at the orphanage. Again, it's batshit. It's 10 tons of shit in a 5-ton bag, And
that's why I said, like, and the music is stock, and there's some really bad filming and editing in certain sequences as well. And then it's almost like they had some great stuff, and then they had some shit, and they kept the shit in too. And that's why, I came in 5.75 out of 10.
Wow.
Because I didn't want to give it a 6. But I still recommend people check it out. It's batshit crazy. You got to see it for that reason. And I might seem low for what I was talking about, but I don't think it's a good film. I think it's an above average film that has some good elements to it, but I couldn't even give it a 6 out of 10.
Whew.
See, that's weird. I don't think it's necessarily a good film, but I think it's a really fun film. And I give it I joking around, I was between a 6.5 and a 7, but I'm going to stick with 6.5. That's why I was joking that I was going to come in 6.75. But
well, you almost did. Shit. You know what? I'm coming in at 6. I had it at a 7, but you guys talked me down a little bit, so I'm going with the official rating I created, 6.75 out of 10.
And I did have it at a 6. And I'm like, I just can't do it because I've had so many movies at a 6 that I think are better than this. But I do want people to check this out. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. I think you'll be like, you'll howl out loud. That definitely happened twice in this movie for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, Bunch is worth a 0.75 for me. I might have been a 6, but you put Bunch in the mix, and mud on that girl.
And that fucking last reveal that ends the movie,
it's cool.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, and the credits roll right after, and she laughs. And the fucking credits roll. That's good shit. All right, cool. We got through that one quickly. We have 2 more to do, and I guess before we do them, I'll pimp for 1 minute, since we don't usually have time to do it on shows like this, but I'll just put our regular stuff out there. If you want to email us, explodingheadshorrorpodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to hook us up a little bit with the Patreon, please do. We appreciate every bit of it, and we're doing all we can to put on the best shows we can and to provide the Patreons whatever they want us to watch. We're going to watch it, and we have lots of good rewards on there. And a big giveaway next week for the Patreon people. Yeah, there you go. Let me give the address to www.patreon.com/explodingheads. I'm going to put up something new content-wise this week. I'll make a video or something. So we'll have something up there. But we are going to have a giveaway for the Patreon people. So there you go, B. Do that, and then we'll go on to our next 2 reviews. Or not. Okay, so we'll talk about it after this review. Let's go into Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I'm sorry, I'm not me tonight. Okay, so the giveaway we're talking about is the Proto-Slasher giveaway, which I had talked about for Patreon contributors only, and I will do the drawing and announce the winner next week, and the winner will receive his or her choice of 2 Proto-Slashers. we'll do the drawing and announce the winner on the next show. So if you want to contribute, you're automatically entered.
Awesome, great. And don't forget iTunes. Please give us a rating, give us a review, and subscribe to us. Anything you can do for us will be greatly appreciated. And if this is the first time you're listening, well, we're usually like this. So, yeah, this is what you see is what you get. I was going to say we're not usually this incompetent, but...
No, this is pretty much it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of seriousness, and it's a little bit of, idiots here stroking out and fumbling over our thoughts. So, yeah. Okay.
I don't even feel like I'm fumbling. I'm just freezing all night here. It's like I've lost the ability to speak. Now I'm stuttering and fumbling.
Nice. Well, I hope you listeners are enjoying this. So this is part of the show. We're going to get in depth on some movies, and we're going to, make asses of ourselves in the meantime. So, yeah, hook us up. Pay us some money on Patreon. Maybe we'll...
maybe we'll get better if you pay.
Yeah, maybe we'll get better. Some of the money's going to go towards
hooked on phonics,
speech therapy.
Yeah, that's exactly little things like that.
Rosetta Stone,
medication. Different things.
We're gonna get the English version of Rosetta Stone so that we can actually fucking finally master this language.
Rosetta Stoned. Yeah. All right. Okay. Can we talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes.
Now? Let's talk about it.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Tobe Hooper. Two siblings visit their grandfather's grave in Texas along with three of their friends and are attacked by a family of cannibalistic psychopaths. That's straight off the B. I think that's a fair setup. I mean, what were they actually doing? They were pretty much just out like joyriding. Did they actually have any plans?
They were going to the Franklin house.
Yeah, they're going to go check out the house that was all decrepit.
Yeah, well, they were first going definitely to check out the grave to make sure that Grandpa's grave wasn't one of the ones being robbed.
Oh, wait a minute. So they're aware of the grave robbing?
Oh, yeah, because that's the whole beginning. It's the whole like news story of everything that's going on.
I know that, but our characters.
Yeah,
Franklin,
the characters are aware.
Sally,
that's why
company. They're aware of grave robbing?
Yeah, that's why they're going to check up on his grave to make sure
I've only seen the movie 100 fucking times. Okay. All right.
How cool is it though that radio thing just plays out for like the first 5+ minutes of the movie too? I love it.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
The radio thing.
You mean the radio?
Yeah, the radio. That radio thing.
That radio thingy, a.k.a. the radio.
Before we go any further, did any of you or either of you or any have this on VHS?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I had it on VHS. You didn't see shit once the halfway mark came through. Like, at those nighttime scenes, you see a figment of white and whatever. When the Laserdisc came out and my buddy Andrew brought it over, we literally sat there just jerking off into the screen because you could start seeing it. It was like seeing The Howling as well because the VHS versions were such horrible transfers. Suddenly you had something that you're like, yes. Well, and I don't have the 4K Blu-ray or anything like that, but I've got my DVD, and boy, does it look good too. And you could just see it in everything from start to finish. And
in the original VHS version, during the night scenes, Franklin gets up and dances. He can, because nobody can see him. That's why he's so sweaty. That's why everyone's so sweaty in this dance.
He's doing the same tap dance as the detective from Psycho.
We're
in the money. We're in the money. Why am I doing a visual? Like anybody can see except for you two.
I enjoy seeing it.
And it's tap. You can't even see my feet.
Not yet. We have to assume. Right. Fucking Franklin.
All right, so I feel like this film in particular is probably, if not the most argued, definitely one of the most argued. Is it a slasher? Isn't it? And also one of those films where I just see such, I don't want to say mixed reviews in terms of like so many people hating it, because it's not that so many people are hating it. It's just that people are either, this is one of the greatest films ever, and then there are people like, it's good.
I hear you, and that's because of the internet has given everybody a voice. And so we've got to wade through everybody's opinion. That's just our new reality. We've got to, you love it or leave it, whatever. it's an unsettling film, and it's definitely a masterpiece.
Oh, without a doubt. And we've always talked about this film. Well, not we, but it's always been talked about the fact that it's one of the goriest films, yet there's actually like little to no gore whatsoever. And man, it's so effective how they do that.
They show, but more implied, and yet I cringe at 3 moments in this movie. And one of them's the dinner scene, the meat hook scene, of course. Oh. And Dave, you brought one up, I think, in the 20 Best Kills, and then it's followed up by another one. But when that guy runs in and then trips and stumbles, and then Leatherface is there, oh my God, is it just unsettling? And then when the other character opens up the freezer, and the girl sort of dead fishes out of it, and the music kicks in. The music.
That noise?
Because it's more noise music. It's so disjointed and unsettling, and like claws on a blackboard, like fingernails on a blackboard, kind of like it is so effective at just making you not at ease throughout. And it's film documentary style in a sense.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it even more effective, because I know people who have issues with the way it's shot, with the cinematography and some of the camera shots, but I think the rawness and it's almost like it's disjointing at times. It's unsettling in look, in feel, in sound. So it really it almost makes you like sick.
Well, and the movie doesn't let up. There's really no comic relief unless you consider Franklin's and stuff comic relief, because it does it's really. I mean, there's moments where you might relate with the characters, but I'm telling you, like, it starts with the grave robbing and with that camera and the pictures, and then you see that really unsettling corpse strapped up on the grave, man. and then it introduces these characters who are like, the lambs of the slaughter. You see the cattle in the foreground, and really they kind of introduce them as just meat.
Those corpses are the stuff of nightmares from when I was a child. Like that look of corpse, like that's the stuff. Like that's why I talked about how much I love the look of the zombie on the cover of Zombie from back in the day, because it had that just horrifying, nightmarish look to it.
But this corpse that you see in the beginning, he's kind of like wet. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yes, he's not fully decomposed yet.
Right, like the one in Zombie looks like dry. Like a mannequin. He's not a mannequin.
He's mannequin-y.
He's dry.
He's a dry corpse.
He needs to get on a good moisturizing regimen.
Try these maggots.
Yeah. Bad worm placement.
Actually, we didn't talk about it. It does have one comic relief scene, and that's
there's tons of comedy.
I didn't feel like there was tons of comedy.
Tongue in cheek. Well, it's like Texas Chainsaw. Well, not Texas Chainsaw 2 comedy, but there's comedy even with the family as well. But it's a dark sense of humor. Well, and so did Psycho. We never brought it up in Psycho. Psycho's kind of a black comedy too. Like you can argue that.
Creighton was much more subdued in the original than he was in part 2. I mean, I love him in part 2. Don't get me wrong, but he's much more subdued in this one. Nubbins is just batshit crazy funny, but the blatant comedy is fucking Franklin getting blown off the hill.
Everything about Franklin is fucking comedy. He is to me now. This doesn't resonate with everybody, but when I watch this film, especially seeing it as many times as I have, I'm doing a lot of laughing the first half hour of this film, and then I'm not laughing again for a while, and then I laugh from the time Drayton comes home and sees Hitchhiker until they get to the dinner scene. There's like 10 minutes of there with
There's maybe some amusing parts, but it's so unsettling, and I find it very difficult to look at super close-ups of eyes and stuff. And this movie fucking had super close-ups of eyes. And even as a kid, I had to turn away from the screen because of the close-ups of the eyes.
Yeah, me too. I can't look at eyes. I can't look at close-ups. I can't look at the veins. I get grossed out. I cannot handle this. I do look away for half of that scene. That's what I'm saying. Once the dinner scene starts, it's sheer terror. But before, and I know we're jumping around, but whatever. I'm talking comedy.
That's what we do.
The whole shit. Right. And he's like, look what your brother did to the door. All that. You damn fool. You ruined the door.
Don't you have respect for your home?
Oh, yes.
and like when you look at the home, you're like, really? The head shades and
when he's poking her in the truck with the stick and he's hitting her in the head. What does he call it? He calls her something. Yeah, nap-haired idiot.
Not her. She's calling...
Who does he call nap-haired idiot?
The hitchhiker is the nap-haired idiot. It's the
Oh,
first thing he sees.
okay.
Yes.
That's right. That's
And
what
then
we
he
call
kicks him in
the
the ass and he
Yeah.
runs. And then later on, the hitchhiker's antagonizing Drayton. He pulls up, and not a lot of people think about this scene. He pulls up, he parks the truck, and the hitchhiker runs over to fucking Drayton's door, the driver's side, and opens it and closes it real quick. He's fucking messing with him. There's all kinds of antagonizing going on between them. And that shit's funny. But the real comedy is Franklin. The entire... Franklin, to me, is what Shelley from Friday 3 is to other people. A lot of people love Shelley, and I think he's fucking annoying. Now, I'm on the other side of the fence, where a lot of people hate Franklin, and I fucking love him. He cracks me up because that's my kind of comedy. Somebody bugging out, unnecessarily bugging out for no reason, and like, I think that guy did that. I think that guy put a sign on the door. I think he's coming after me. And then the guy's going back with it. That's fucking funny. And he's like, I even told him your name and address. That shit. I told him where you live. That shit he's bugging out the whole time, even at the beginning when he's peeing in the can. And I do bug out every time because I would never put my dick close to that can. I always think about fucking his cock getting sliced off with that fucking metal.
Botulism?
Yeah, whatever. It grosses me out, the thought of it. But as soon as that thing drives
Tetanus?
by...
Botulism. You're not eating it through your dick. Sorry.
It's sick. No, but when that truck drives by and he rolls down that hill, I immediately burst out laughing. Because it's Franklin. If it was another person in a wheelchair that I didn't know, there's nothing funny about that. But because knowing that character and how uptight he is and how fucking wound up he is and just bugging out, to see him rolling down that hill, I burst out laughing every time I see the film. And I'm laughing at everything that comes out of his mouth. And even later on when he's about to get killed.
You're an exception. You're an exception because I don't think a lot of people, some people may find some amusement, but I think you've just seen the movie so many times. I've seen the movie a lot too, and I still find it, like, I can chuckle and whatever, but I still find it so fucking unsettling that the comedy, it doesn't lighten the mood enough. Like, it just sort of just builds.
Yeah. I'm with you,
Right.
Christian. I can laugh, but it's not like part two.
And I'm sorry I cut you off, Dave, because
you're too much.
you're about to say that you laugh right up to the point where he gets chainsawed. Well, because he's so, at that point, you're like, shut up, Frank. Like, your sister's freaking pushing you through the woods, and he's got that flashlight and whatever. And that's all you would see. You see a little bit of light in the VHS version. You wouldn't see anything until you saw the close-up of Leatherface coming out. So literally your black screen went to this big shot of Leatherface coming in. Now you see a little bit more, but that still is a crazy-ass scare. And there is some chainsaw in there. You don't see much, but what you're seeing is still unsettling.
Carving.
I'd say unsettling quite a bit, but that's the best way to describe this movie.
What's it, Dave?
I can't do it now.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But he's great. He's like, get back and push down. He's fucking barking orders to her. He just cracks me up. And like when they pick up the hitchhiker, another amazing scene in horror history. Everything about that. Yes, it's very unsettling. There is no comedy except at the end when he stabs fucking Franklin. Yes, it is reaction. I can't fucking... I'm sorry. That shit, everything with Franklin cracks me up. And then when they get back to the place and that whole shit, come on, Franklin, it's going to be a fun trip. I mean, how the fuck? If I have any more fun, I don't think I'll be able to take it. And he's going, oh, he's fucking incredible. And then later on when he says he's so depressed when they come down the stairs and they're going to go down the old trail and like, yeah, we'll see you in about an hour or so. And he's like, yeah, see you in about an hour or so. Oh, he's fucking great. I'm sorry, but this movie appeals to me on that level where I do a lot of
We
laughing.
can tell.
Yeah, but there's sheer terror.
Ah, look at this miserable cripple.
Yes, but only because it's him.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I
You know,
get what
like-
you're saying. I don't necessarily agree, but I...
Yeah. And there's some
It's just
amusement. There is some amusement, but not to the extent I'm like,
For him, yes.
But
That's it. Everything else is terrifying.
and we've read, and people have just recently discussed this. I think it may have been on 22 Shots, but I mean, it was in the documentaries. Like, the set dressing of this movie adds a lot to the movie, and you really can smell almost what these people are going through. I think it's because of the way, again, I think it was shot in 16 millimeter. Don't quote me on that, but it just adds to that sort of documentary feel and the sweat on everybody, and you just feel like you're witnessing something you shouldn't be watching.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like a documentary type feel.
Yeah, even though there are some stylized shots within, overall, I'm saying there's that sense of like that documentary feel. And those encounters with Leatherface, where that guy trips, boom, slams that door, the other girl goes in, and he runs out, grabs her, pulls her back in, puts her on the meat hook. It just...
That's a great scene.
That is just like, you're just frozen. You're like Brandon earlier in the show. You're just frozen.
It was shot on 16 millimeter, by the way.
Okay.
I just confirm that. And don't forget, I think part of the look of the film is also because of the fact that this was not a pleasant experience. I mean, they were working incredibly long hours. It was miserably hot. I mean, they were miserable. The hitchhiker even quoted as saying he would, he probably would have killed Tobe Hooper had he met him again.
I heard they were puking. They're puking in between takes.
Yeah. Gunnar Hansen said he puked fucking when they were by the time they got to the dinner scene, because they were filming in the daytime, but they had to make it look night, so they had to black out all the windows and they put whatever over the windows. So now you're hot as fuck, and these people wore the same clothes every day for like a month because they didn't want to wash them because they're doing a lot of things chronologically. So they didn't want to risk losing it or anything, So they wore the same clothes every day in 90 to 100 degree heat every day. Then by the time they got to apparently it was was it 27? I think it was a 27-hour shoot, the dinner scene. They did it all one take till they were done. It took them 27 hours. Wow. And they were all in the same clothes. And then they had decorations in there, too. They had a chicken head that you could see right in front of her, and that thing started to rot and stink. So everybody stinks. Gunnar Hansen said, he goes, it's embarrassing. He goes, but I stunk the most. He was like, I weigh a couple 100 pounds, and I'm wearing this fucking suit every day for months, and it's 100 fucking degrees, and we're inside this place, and it's dark, and there's lights, and they're trying to make it fucking, we're going to be even more hot filming that way. Yeah. Blacking out fucking windows and having lights on and everything. And, man, it was grueling thing. They
said
up.
Sally's blood-soaked shirt at the end of the filming was like rock solid, much like Christian sheets.
They just stand up on their own. It's great. They capture that. What happens is that sort of transcends to the screen, and you can see it and you feel it, and some of that energy comes back, and is probably what makes the movie, or what helps make the movie so good.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like it. There are movies before that are like exploitation films. There's other movies like Last House on the Left and shit like that. And then there's stuff that followed it that are like slashers. But this movie, like nothing else feels like this movie.
Other than a Rob Zombie film. Because Rob Zombie, and he will be the first to say it, he loved this movie. And there's nothing wrong with that. And he's going for that feeling in his movies. And that's the feel, and that's the movie that did it. And you're right. I don't really recall. I mean, we talked about Cannibal Holocaust, and that's a different feeling. But it's that grittiness. Yeah, it's the grittiness mixed with it.
Even zombies films don't capture that raw grittiness that TCM did.
Well, because it's more stylized. It's more
exactly.
Stylized, honestly, House of a Thousand Corpses is more like Texas Chainsaw 2 than 1. Maybe because of Bill Moseley's character, and he's in both movies. But it's just, I don't know, it feels that way to me more than the only thing that Corpses did is they put a chicken in a fucking cage. They did a couple set pieces similar to Texas Chainsaw, which were obvious things. But it doesn't feel as much like Texas Chainsaw 1 as it does 2. To me, maybe because of the way the family interacted. I don't know. That's just what I always thought about it. But yeah, he does try it, and it just has a feel that's like unique. It's hard to explain, but the sound design is amazing. The sounds they use throughout. There's not a soundtrack. It's just sound. Yeah. It's just fucking sounds throughout. Such a smart decision. I mean, it maybe was because they didn't have any money. So I was watching a documentary on this, and Tobe Hooper was saying that he had this like a instrument from Africa, and it was a string instrument, but it also had little cymbals on it. So he was plucking at it and pulling the strings and doing things with these cymbals and smashing it and doing all these different things and taking saw blades and manipulating them and just shit like that. Smart, yeah. Sound like fucking Blue's Clues.
But did you notice, and they don't go into this in this movie, they've touched upon it in other movies, I think mostly in the Return to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, or a Return to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But Leatherface, so you see him in all his glory at the beginning, but then at the dinner scene, he is made up. Yeah. He puts lipstick on and everything else, but you never see it. It's just you just see it afterwards because you're like, oh yeah, he's got lipstick and like blue eyeshadow or whatever like that, and a wig, I think. But they never really talk about it. They never go into any detail. He's dressed for dinner type thing.
Makes it even more terrifying.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, he has different masks and different wigs.
Yeah, even when he's talking like a little girl, creepy.
The
other thing that's unsettling about this ever since I first saw it, up right into this viewing, is we talk about the dinner scene. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it may be, but it's massive edits, almost like the shower scene in Psycho, like boom, boom, boom. I don't think it was maybe telegraphed quite like the way as in storyboarded that way, but I think he just wanted to show the raw intensity of all. So you get those ultra close-ups, the super close-ups of the eye, all unsettling. But she screams and screams and screams, and it's unrelenting. And you're just like, gotta get out. Something's gotta fucking happen here. And then she gets free, and I'm still shaking my hand, like, get out of there, get out of there. I've seen the movie so many fucking times, but you're like, just run. And still Leatherface comes, and then the truck comes, and then Black Mama comes, or what was his name? Black. It's written on the side of the truck.
Oh, you're talking about Black Maria.
Black Maria, thank you. Yeah. And then he runs, and then she jumps on that truck, and Leatherface is still coming up to the truck there.
And Black Maria just keeps running the other way.
It's like, feet don't fail me now.
How about the fact that Friday the 13th Part 4 stole directly from this film?
Hold on. Let me think about this. Friday 4 stole directly from this film.
It's something I always mention.
Gordon?
Yep.
So wait a minute, because she jumped out the window?
From the second story, she was so terrified of Leatherface, she Gordoned herself.
Wait, that's the second story?
I thought it was the first story.
No, the second time she jumped out the window was this first story. She did it twice in the movie, jumping out the window. The first time was from the second story.
What the fuck are you talking about? She only jumped out the window one time and then she escaped.
Twice.
What? Christian?
Because
the window twice?
Because the first time she runs to
the gas station, right? Or to the barbecue.
She made a mistake there. She made a mistake when she escaped one of the times in that she was getting away fine. Leatherface was running around the house, but she decided she's going to scream and attract Leatherface.
Bad move.
But yeah, she jumped twice.
You're right. I'm thinking. I thought you were saying it all took place at the dinner scene. That she escaped and then she escaped again. I'm like, wait a minute, what am I fucking?
No.
Okay.
And I think this is why people don't like the movie, or some people will argue they don't like the movie. It's unrelenting. It doesn't let up. It's screaming. It's not fun for some.
No,
and you're just and so some people are just like, I don't want to see it. I don't like this. But that's exactly why I love it, and why I'll continue to love it. And that's what makes it a classic as well.
No, it's definitely earned its place as a classic in horror cinema.
Oh. And it came out the year I was born. So it makes it an instant classic.
You old wisecracking prick, you. What's
Who's making those pig noises? Is Leatherface making those pig noises? Or is there really a pig in the house?
When they come in, it sounds like a real pig, but...
Yes, it's so accurate.
He really is squealing like a pig.
Yes, he actually squeals like a pig. Right, exactly.
Yeah, only that's not a horror film.
Don't get me started. I've never seen it, so I can't say anyway.
But you know better.
I also mentioned the cringing. That dinner scene when they cut Sally's finger. So simple. It is more disturbing and shocking to me than some regular stabs in Friday the 13th movies or whatever. Just the slice of the finger and feeding Grandpa.
Yeah, Grandpa sucking on her finger is more cringeworthy than the cut.
It's fucked up, the whole Grandpa thing. And isn't it weird that he looks older in part 1 than he does in part 2?
Well, he took off that mask that he wore in Blood and Lace.
The Mel Freddy mask?
Mel Freddy.
I'll tell you what, and there is still great lines throughout the movie. Like, I love when the hitchhiker finds out that it's Sally. And he because earlier on in the movie she says that they're in a hurry. He goes, I thought you was in a hurry. He tells her. I love that line, man. And then nonsensical lines like fucking when he's talking about Grandpa, when Drayton's talking about Grandpa, and he goes, "Oh, Grandpa was the greatest." He starts talking about like the hook and pole gang. He's like, the hook and pole gang. If they could have gotten the beeves out of the way quicker. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, he said. Yeah, I didn't understand that line.
No, he could have gotten more if the hook and pole gang would have gotten the beeves out of the way quicker.
He pulled 60 in 5 minutes.
Yeah. There's a lot of nonsensical lines, and it just does enough to break up the fucking out of control shit.
You're just a cook. We do everything.
Right. He's just a cook. He's like, can't take no pleasure in killing. Oh, he's fucking great, Yeah, some things you gotta do. Don't mean you gotta enjoy them.
But that's what adds dimension to this fucked up people. Right. Like, it adds a little bit more than just like their bad shit at the table. What's the link? You guys know this, but I'll bring it up. Trivia. What's the link between Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Ed Gein.
Yeah. I thought you said indeed. I'm like, indeed what?
Indeed, Ed Gein.
Indeed, it is Ed Gein, indeed.
No more bait.
It's going to be like our sign-off.
I don't want to keep going on and on, but I appreciate the shots more now than I used to. The sound design, the noise that are making throughout the film. There's just so much going on here.
The literal armrests.
Oh, right? Yes. That's fucking out of control.
That's the black comedy. That's the dark comedy, because that's fucking funny.
That's
funny,
fucking
but it's hilarious.
Disgusting and
I never thought about it as being funny. That's the weird thing. It just seemed grotesque to me.
Well, it is grotesque, but they're arm rests, literally. Like, it's fucking hilarious. But you don't think of it in that context. Maybe someone, but you don't think of it. And that's where I'm saying the dark comedy comes from, because it's there, but it's so intense in the moment that when you're talking about it after, you're like, arm rests. But
you know what? I was going to say another interesting thing, and I didn't realize it. I didn't think it was until part 2 where they actually refer to Leatherface as Leatherface, but they do call him Leatherface in this.
Yeah, he calls him that.
The hitchhiker does.
Yep.
Yeah, it says Leatherface helped me tie her up, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, this movie was supposed to be called Leatherface, Everyone thinks that it was supposed to be called Head Cheese, and that was the first one. But the working title for the longest time, and the one they were going to put the film out as, was actually Leatherface. And then they ended up going with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And they explained why in the documentary I saw, but Leatherface was really the working title for a long time.
Yeah, I just didn't know they referred to him in the first film as Leatherface.
Yeah, he calls him that. Yeah.
And that head cheese story. Ooh.
Waste nothing. Yeah, he fucking. Oh, it's great.
No. Put a lot of people out of work. I love that whole fucking scene in the van is great.
Yes.
It is.
Oh, boy.
You said it earlier, but I gotta
I talked mostly about the comedy, and I just basically said, a comment about how it's an amazing scene. But the reason why it's amazing, it's so unsettling. When he cuts, it's almost like believable. You could imagine running into some fucking weirdo like that, picking them up hitchhiking, and some guy coming in and then cutting his hand like that. Oh, that's fucking.
And Franklin is kind of like intrigued and disgusted at the same time. The other guy's like totally disgusted and like scared, and then the driver keeps going, "What did he say?" And the driver's like, he's like, "I don't know. We have to get this guy the fuck out of here." That's all I know.
They should have just bought the photo, though.
Yeah.
Just buy the fucking photo.
You can pay me now. Yeah, that is amazing. That's when he said, he goes, what did he say? Because he tells him, he goes, this guy's trying to charge us to sell us a picture. That part is great. It's a nice picture. You can pay me now. Oh, it's fucking great.
Oh, it's a little out of focus. Shut up, Franklin, and pay the guy.
Right. And Franklin's like, what does he say? And he goes, I don't know. You got to have something inside just to be able to do that to yourself. He's like impressed. He's like, he's I want you just to do that. He says, oh, he's great. And then when he's going, talking about someone the fucking house. What about that old guy in the beginning? That always spooks me the fuck out.
But John Larroquette narrated? Did you know that? It was John Larroquette narrated the thing. That's like an old trivia piece. Because you just know him from like.
Was paid with a joint.
Really?
Paid with a joint.
Yes.
I didn't even know that part. That's hilarious.
But
never seen the film either.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that I didn't know. But I think it's amazing. What other film starts that way? That's something else about this movie that was never been done before or since, unless it's a Texas Chainsaw sequel. Who thinks to start a movie that way? It's fucking incredible.
Well, the sequel seems to omit the fact that Black Mania and another truck driver saw Leatherface zipping around with a chainsaw, and Black Mania's truck has all the marks on it. But that's
Black Mania.
But that's part 2 to worry about. We're talking about a different movie here. For this movie,
Is it Black Mania or Black Maria?
It's Maria. He's calling it Mania. Black Mania's running wild.
Hey, Black Mania matters.
Black Mania. It's like a movement. Black Mania. Yeah.
That's why the cops were so tense in Texas Chainsaw, because Black Mania was sweeping the nation.
I saw you guys laughing. I'm like, what am I saying wrong here? I knew it. As soon as I said something, you guys were like, about to choke up.
Oh, that was amazing. Oh, I don't even know what we were talking about. John Lyric in the opening narration and how they retconned it in part 2. She slipped her the catatonia. That fucking thing in part 2, you know? Oh, that's fucking great. Let me just look. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? Because there's so much. How about those spiders? Did you ever notice that scene? Did you ever see spiders?
Creepy.
Daddy Long Leg? Oh my God. The most nasty scene in the whole film, I think.
Right, and the noises that it makes.
Yeah.
That's what that documentary feel like. You're just something. It's just
Right. This is a nasty film. This really is a nasty film.
Yeah, it is, dude. It's fucking awesome. And
I'm surprised this didn't make the video nasties list.
You know what did happen to it though? A year after it came out,
Actually,
the UK they fucking burned it. They wouldn't allow it. This and that. It was one movie they never allowed. It didn't come out until like I want to say the 80s. But I guess they had a bad regime there. Something was going on, or I don't know.
Yeah, but it made the Section 3 list, but it wasn't
it's
one
a
of
bad
the original.
hombres. And I cut Brandon off. I'm sorry, Brandon. You said
That's okay.
Yeah. No, it's not. What were you
I was
saying?
probably just gonna freeze.
Freeze. Now, why did the old man say you guys should stay here a while? You kids don't want to be messing around up there. Do you think he was trying to have them avoid trouble, or he was setting them up? You know what I'm talking about? When they first pull in and Drayton's at the fucking gas station, he says, we don't have any gas.
Oh,
So
trouble.
He's trying to set them up?
Come eat with us, and we'll get more meat.
Okay, so you think
make it easier.
He planned it from the start.
Yeah.
To fucking... Okay, all right. I was never sure. I always thought for some reason I got the impression that he was trying to keep his other brothers away from them, and he was actually trying to steer them away, saying, you don't want to go messing around that old house with those girls and this and that. And I don't know. Wait a
minute. Okay, here's where I'm confused, and I might sound a little amateurish with TCM here. Is Drayton the father?
Nope. I used to think that too, but he's the oldest brother. There's 3 brothers.
He is. Okay, because...
And there's a power struggle because of it. He's not...
That's why you're just a cook.
Exactly.
Okay. I wasn't 100% sure. So
I used to think it too. So.
Yeah, I still wasn't 100% sure. I've seen these films a bunch of times, not as... I won't even say a dozen times, maybe like a handful of times. So I wasn't as familiar, but again, I was a little confused.
Yeah, they're all.
He's always calling Grandpa also, and I'm thinking, well, maybe he's just saying Grandpa's and like, boys, go get Grandpa. Like,
right. They're brothers, and they said, well, where's the mothers? So how come there's no women here? How come there's no females? It's just guys, and that's why they put the grandma in there, just to say that at one time there was a female here.
Yeah.
Even though she's just this fucking rotted thing. That's why someone suggested, hey, why don't we put somebody here? And that's why they came up with the grandma idea. But just to show that there's breeding here, you know, what's going on here. It's just these guys. But I'll tell you what, one thing I have to bring up that nobody talks about, but I always... that scene with the hitchhiker, when he gets thrown out of the fucking thing, it's like the best 5 seconds in film. When he gets thrown out, and he's just doing it, yes, he's just by himself, holding up that freaking gunny sack or whatever it is, and dancing with nobody else around. They're way That just shows you how crazy it is. Every time I see it, I burst out laughing. It's just him shaking his head, his fucking arms.
I didn't realize you were in a Leatherface shirt. I thought you just did the dance. Which we can verbally hear or visually.
Yeah, he's shaking his whole camera setup. His whole mic setup.
I know, right? I'm probably breaking half of my shit. I'm fucking doing the dance. And I was doing the hitchhiker dance. He was fucking holding that down.
Here it is again. Like my tap dance earlier. This deserves all the credit it gets. Tobe Hooper's made some great films. This is his best one.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that by far. Yeah.
10 out of 10.
I can't argue. 10 out of 10.
I can't come in at a 10 out of 10. And I think it's just because of the rewatchability for me. I'm not in a rush to rewatch it again. It's a great film, don't get me wrong. It's so disturbing, though. It really is. And for me to say that, and I've seen some pretty sick shit, but I don't know why. This one just makes me uncomfortable, but 9 out of 10.
Nothing wrong with that.
So another Hall of Famer. We forgot to announce that, both this and Psycho are Hall of Famers.
Yeah, as I anticipated.
Which they deserve to be.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
This is a horror movie. I know that sounds weird to say, but what movie should I watch? Like, a lot of people say The Exorcist, The Shining, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a perfect example. It's not something you can recommend to everybody, but if you want to see an unsettling horror film, start with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Almost like the purest, rawest horror film there is. If you want to see pure horror, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is pure horror.
Yeah, and it really has everything because it has very horrific moments.
Yeah.
Scary shit. It's scary that some people are killed during the daytime. That's because the whole thing with the hook and the hammer scene and all that shit right in the middle of the day. That's fucking beautiful. That's scary shit, right? Yeah, beautiful. And then later on, when she's in there and she stumbles in that room and the chicken's clucking and there's feathers and bones all over the place. And again, the set design, the stuff that they did and the way they had to go get these animal corpses and people corpses and fucking bring them back and the stuff that they did on this little budget, they really overachieved in so many ways. It's just a testament. It's just the perfect storm. Everything went and it really was a storm because most of the actors didn't get paid shit. They got fucked over with the freaking financing and everything else, and it was a miserable experience for a lot of them. But it's history, and most of them are proud to be a part of that history.
Yeah.
And I got to say that Marilyn Burns, even though it's not a slasher per se, and she's not really a final girl, it's kind of like the best scream queen performance there is. As far as, from the screaming part.
Pure hysteria.
I would agree. Yeah,
Pure
she's screaming for the last 30 minutes of the movie, but it's not annoying. It's haunting.
No, right.
It's haunting because it's so genuine, and her face when she finally hits the road, that facial expression she gives when she's on like all fours on the highway, and then of course to look back in the truck. I mean, I think that's a combination not only of her acting, but probably of like what the experience was like making this.
She was fucked because they finished the scene, right? And then she went home and she thought she was done. And apparently they did not get the fucking, the very last chase. So she took off her clothes that she was fucking about to burn them, she said. And they called her and they said, you have to come back. So when she came, she said, when I came back to film that last scene, when you see me laughing in the back of the fucking truck hysterically, that's real. Because that's the way I felt at that moment. Holy fuck. Between that and everything that she went through with the dinner scene and the beating from Drayton with the broom. Because he was trying to take it easy and Toby was like saying, no, it doesn't look real enough. They tried a rubber one. They tried different things and nothing looked real. So apparently they were there for hours and he was beating her with this fucking broom. And there's something else I had to bring up. I didn't notice this till recently. All the times I've seen this, mostly because of what you said earlier, Christian, about the VHS. I never realized it until recently with Blu-ray. That when she is sitting there, and I didn't bring this up either because it's so great, when he comes back with the fucking sack and the rope, that's fucking, that's horror. That's fucking scary as fuck because you know what's up and she knows what's up at that moment. But when she's sitting there waiting for him and he goes away, there's this one scene where she looks at the meats cooking.
At the barbecue. Yeah. Inside.
Yeah.
You could see that it's fucking human in there now. You could see like almost a piece of a torso hanging there. That's not meat from a beast. That's fucking human. I know.
Not meat from a beast.
Maybe it was a fat woman.
It probably was a fat
beast.
woman.
A beast of a woman.
But no, you can see it now that that's not regular shit they're barbecuing. Where in the past, I just took it as regular barbecue. Now, watching it on Blu-ray, you can see that that's not the intent there is that it's not meat, that it's human.
I thought they were just hot links.
Some jerky.
Nice.
No, I mean,
Marilyn Burns. Have you noticed? She doesn't get the credit.
You're right. I think it's an underrated performance.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people do talk about it.
Never. When people talk about Scream Queens, she never comes up. Maybe because it's not technically a slasher and she's not technically a final girl, so she's overlooked. But all the horror movies I've watched, I got to say that I don't think it gets any better than that. So
no, they've mentioned Stretch though in some of those Scream Queen things, and I think Stretch is great, but I think Marilyn Burns is better. It's just the reality of it. You got all that hysteria, all that unsettlingness, and you got literal arm rests. Full head explosion.
Let me ask you something. When they get into the truck, she gets into the truck first, and then Black Mania follows. How come they just go immediately? How come they immediately go out the other side versus like driving away?
I don't think he can get the truck started, and I think he's coming right at him, right?
No, I like it. It's sort of like almost like a comedic. It's a
Cops.
little bit of break in the seriousness there, because then especially when she jumps in the truck and you just see Black Mambo running by, and it's hilarious.
Now.
When you see Django run by.
Right. I should have been motherfucking Black Mamba.
And he's got the wrench. He's got to throw the wrench, and then that scene when the chainsaw goes in the Leatherface's leg too.
Ooh,
Yeah, he said that burned. He said that was actually like a real scream because it burned like the plate that was under there, the friction.
Steel plate?
Paper.
When she's running out of the house and Leatherface is chasing her down the road, and you see Hitchhiker cutting her up with the fucking thing right behind
brutal.
her. Oh, it's
Brutal.
so good.
I always think of Summer School though. I don't know why, because that's like the first time I ever saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That
And
scene.
the dance at the end, and he's like, "Do the dance,
Yeah,
Leatherface.
yeah.
Dance, yes." I do too.
I always think of Summer School.
And he even said it. And when they made that movie Summer School, Chainsaw and Dave are reviewing the movie, and then he says, "We're gonna watch the 1974 Tobey Hooper classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre." Even he knew it wasn't Tobe. I'm sorry. I hope you're not mad. I hope you know it's all.
Listen to Postmodern Radio, everybody.
Yeah,
There you
another
go.
plug.
A plug
There you
for
go.
them as well.
Yeah.
Great fucking movie.
What a fucking move. Right.
We're the Mafia Brothers.
The Mafia cousins.
Hey, anybody got any antipasto?
So that leaves us one more movie on our Proto-Slasher, Night of the Proto-Slasher, right?
Night of the Proto-Slasher.
All right, Night of the Proto. NOTPS. All right. So that leaves us our final movie. Now, this movie has just been released after being gone for a very long time, because it came out in 1975, and it didn't get a release for a long time until about a month ago, month and a half ago on Blu-ray. So it's a movie that's going to be overlooked that a lot of people aren't going to know, but we thought we'd bring it to the table. So, and it's one that you should check out. And how good is it? Well, you're going to find out now. It's a movie from 1975 called The Intruder.
Yep. So The Intruder is written, directed, produced, and starring Chris Robinson. And
Starring? Oh, wow, you got me there.
yeah,
Okay.
he's
Owner of Winnie the Pooh.
Oh God! Wow.
or the singer from the Black Rose. I got a remedy. Yeah, come on. Man.
You just wanted to sing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always want to sing.
The lust for gold brings 11 visitors to a remote island retreat, but an unseen, seemingly unstoppable evil follows to stalk them one by one.
And the cover makes us look like it's a supernatural slash.
Yeah, and even the descriptions,
Yeah.
Set it up like it could be supernatural. And I think very early on you get the sense that this is not a supernatural slasher. But yeah, Chris Robinson, who wrote and directed this, also was Reardon, our main character.
Boy, I'll tell you right now, I get really confused with the characters and
Yeah,
it
it was tough to keep in check.
I don't even have a rating because I'm going to need you guys to help me out.
Yeah, I honestly don't have a rating. I have a ballpark of where I am, but this is an interesting film. I'm glad it was found and it's been put out.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a great film? No.
No,
It's got issues, but it's got issues especially since we're talking about it as a proto-slasher. It is written right on the cover box that it's a proto-slasher, but this has 14 kills in it. Yet it seems like there's no blood or no kills at all.
Yeah, no, and it definitely is very goreless. And it's very much a 10 Little Indians and then there were none ripoff. It's set up kind of like that. And it feels,
that's the story. 10 Little Indians.
Yeah,
and it's just mixed in with some batshit dialogue, some batshit fight scenes.
Yeah, not as bad shit as
boy.
the other movie, but that scene is a fucking kung fu scene.
Oh yeah,
my
I
God.
have it written in big letters, Kung Fu Battle.
It actually got an end credit that said,
It was directed by Jackie Chan.
No, it's-
Choreographed by.
I said, well, first of all, the piano sounds like Linus from Peanuts, Charlie Brown, plucking away at the piano while they're fighting. And at the end of the movie, you get the cherry on the top because it says, karate sequences by Grandmaster Warren Siciliano and Corrado Karate.
Corrado.
Corrado Soprano?
Yeah, Corrado Soprano.
Junior? No shit, huh?
Siciliano, I think, was the actual Warren Siciliano. But it was just, I was like, wow, he actually choreographed that scene. And it looks like it's right out of a 70s Kung Fu Chuck Norris movie or something like that. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, except the guy that's doing fucking judo chops looks like Captain Lou Albano when he played Mario.
I loved Orsatti. I thought he was great. He was...
Not to mention,
know.
and I'm sorry if this is a spoiler, but I don't give a fuck. Not to mention that they both just fall off the rafters and impale themselves on fucking pitchforks to die.
Yeah, well, he kicks the one off, but then the other one just
He goes,
is like,
whoa, 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 whoa,
whoa, whoa.
That was great.
I think he tap danced off the thing.
It was a Friday 3 scene. Matter of fact, a lot of stuff in this. Again, this is why this is a proto-slasher. It's still 75. We get shit that happens in Friday 3. We get the Funhouse gags that we see in Halloween 78 with the body cup falling from the rafter all of a sudden. You get POV. You get a stalker. I mean, this really is a proto-slasher.
There are shots. And guys, we're all over the place. And I know we saw the movie, so we're going right for the comedy. But to set it up, Brandon set up the idea of the movie. I'll tell you this. I had to watch this twice. And the first time I said, well, here's the main fault of the movie. No one's engaged. The actors are all underplaying their roles. No one seems to enunciate their dialogue at all. I'm like,
There's no character development.
get on
whatsoever
with
either.
it. They're just like, oh, this guy's a bastard, and we're going to spend the night over here, and I think we need to find the gold here. And like, what? Why is nobody like acting?
I
It
love
was
the opening
so
score,
underplayed.
though, on the boat.
That score, the first
Like Giallo-esque.
the first third of the movie has a great score, but
Yeah.
then they too fall victim to some bad music choices as well.
Yeah. No character development in this film. I thought you talked about how Psycho, they didn't need the opening credits telling you the date and the time. This film used that typewriter thing to tell you Friday, day 1.
Yeah.
You certainly didn't need that.
It was a
Right,
total
same
ripoff. It was trying to make it me be more important. Again,
Yeah.
kind of like stealing the exact thunder from Psycho of what that was trying to achieve and transplanted it to this movie, which it didn't need
And
at
look,
all.
they got big names for this film. They had Mickey Rooney, they had Yvonne DiCarlo, they had what's his name who played Lurch? Ted Cassidy?
What did they have, the Munsters versus Addams Family? Did they have one from the Munsters and one from Addams Family in this?
Did they fucking really?
Yeah. I thought that was the chick from the Munsters, wasn't it?
Which one? I'm sorry.
Well,
You talking
no.
about the blonde girl that was supposed that played
Oh
the
no,
straight?
you're right. Yvonne DiCarlo was Lily Munster.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
you're
Oh,
right.
it was
brunette.
Lily.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was Lily Munster, and Ted Cassidy was Lurch. Yes, you're right.
But now, was it the guy that came at the end?
Yeah.
The guy, the tall guy? Oh, that
I'm
makes
Brandon's
This
face.
is not a porno, by the way. Was that the guy who came at the end? Yeah, right over Christian's chin.
I already
Well,
cracked your
sitcom.
face. Just 30 seconds. Not even 30
Oh,
seconds
I'm
ago.
not even listening to you. You were too far away from the mic. You leaned back to crack wise, and no one heard you.
They heard me just fine there, Cinema Attack.
I know, not even Tinger was in.
I'm going to cut that out. I feel
Then.
horrible.
Amazing.
Let's just start off by saying there's a reference to my favorite place, Bogota, Colombia. I can't remember how I pronounced it the first time.
Yeah, well, that's where the gold came from.
Yeah.
The gold. Listen, okay, let me just put it out there. I was a little bit confused with the plot, especially the first time, but this is my issue. I must have been the only one because no one else brought this up. I had trouble with the sound here. Certain characters, I couldn't understand what they were saying. The sound was so bad.
I had subtitles.
No,
I
it
own
was
the movie.
it was bad sound design. I think that's
Yeah.
probably why the movie got shelved. I think they just said it's not up to a professional like Mickey Rooney.
He was fine.
Shouldn't even been in this movie. It was like he was a walk
He did
on
it for
role.
like he probably filmed that all in like an hour. Or
They
two.
just keep cutting back to him driving that fucking yacht.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and
And
you know
then-
what's funny with him
Yeah.
is Mickey
Shoot it to
Rooney.
me.
I always associate him with Pete's Dragon because when I was a kid, I used to watch Pete's Dragon on HBO all the time, and Mickey Rooney was in Pete's Dragon. And on top of it, a lighthouse was featured in Pete's Dragon. So I found it strange of the Mickey Rooney connection to a lighthouse in this movie.
You think it would have been better if he got killed by Pete up in there? Or the dragon?
Or the dragon, Elliot.
Yeah, why did he go to that lighthouse? He just gets off the boat, hops into his car,
Yeah,
we follow him in his car.
I can't straight for that.
He drives up to the lighthouse and goes, "Hey!" and then walks up to the fucking lighthouse and gets killed. And spoiler.
He heard something or saw something in the lighthouse.
But why did he drive there in the first place? That's where he lives?
Maybe.
And the hand that grabs him is not anything near the revelation of the killer.
Oh wait, though, I think there's more than one killer anyway. I think there's.
That's for sure. But
yeah, there's two.
But even when you know what the revelation is, it's not anything like that. That person.
That fucks it up. So that fucks it up. But listen, Tuttleman, I could only understand 50% of what came out of his mouth.
Did you hear the mistake in the film?
Did I see a mistake in the film?
Did you hear the mistake in the film?
No, because I couldn't hear.
Did he call someone by their real name?
The guy who keeps telling him, "Shut up, Tuttleman," at one point says, and I wrote it down, "Shut up, Pepperman."
Are you serious?
It even popped up on the subtitles.
Pepperman?
Pepperman.
Fucked up their name. Yeah.
Pepperman. They messed it up. They didn't even fix that. But I thought it was funny. It is.
That's something Christian would say.
Hey, it's Tuttleman. Yeah, Tuttleman was strange.
I couldn't understand half of what he said. And this is the first 15 minutes of the film. They're having this serious, slow dialogue. And I'm like, well, it would be nice if I could know what the hell was going on in the plot. And I could not understand that dude. And the other dude that looked like Alan Alda, I would say about 25% of the time I couldn't hear what he said.
He's the director.
Else. Oh, that's him? Alan Alda? Chris Robinson?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Because of that, I had a lot of trouble because it's kind of a convoluted plot. There's gold. They're talking about who's the one guy.
It's not even that convoluted.
Peterson.
They explain everything in the.
It's pretty straightforward actually. They confuse you by not really going into depth with the characters.
Yeah.
You know, and they try to make it be supernatural, saying that this Axel Lubin, who's the one who died, who they're there to get his gold,
what?
that
He
might
died?
still be. Axel Lubin.
I thought Peterson died and Axel's the guy that shows up at the end. Then who's the guy that shows up at the end? Lurch.
You never know.
What? How does he know where the gold is then?
You don't know who he is.
Oh, are you serious?
You never know who he is. Peterson's dead. Peterson was found.
What are you talking about? You know, it's her boyfriend, is it not?
I figured that part out.
It was the boyfriend.
But you have no idea who he is or how they've known each other since kids. So is he another family member? You don't know that. You don't find that out.
Well, Peterson shows up dead, and they're speculating it might be Peterson setting them up because he wants to keep the gold.
Yeah, but I found it interesting that Peterson is found dead outside of the dining room scene where they're eating, and then standing up, and then it's later referenced that Peterson is 6'10", and then the killers turned out to be 7 feet tall. It should have been called Land of the Giants.
I mean, and there wasn't really any scares. I'll say there's one effective shot where I forgot her name. She's writing something in a book, and she's in her room, and it's dark, and she's illuminated, and the lightning illuminates the killer.
Oh, yeah.
Slasher. Yep, the stalker walking outside.
Miss Nichols.
That was cool.
And if you pause it, you can totally see who it is.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
And he's at the window for a second. That scene, effective. Other than that, not one scare. We get Kung Fu later. We get a large body count. But it's the most ridiculous large body count known to man because you don't have anything invested in these characters at all. Because like Brandon said, all the character development is we know these people in passing at the beginning. The discussion's kind of on the boat as they're coming into the house. And then that's it. Then they're having dinner together and then people start dying.
Yeah, some of them are related to each other. You know, in fact, I think it's implied that most of them are related to each other. One of them just worked for the guy, and he's there as the cook, or as they call him, the maid.
You're just a cook.
You broke my glasses.
And that one guy when they all split up, and I love this because this is one of those movies where everybody splits up, but they still do stupid things. Like they decide to people dying one by one, but they still sleep by themselves. Or there's the people dying one by one. They go all splitting up looking for clues, and a girl stays back to bathe by herself in the house. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. But did you know that one guy? He sees that floating jacket in the lake. And he walks out. He walks out to get it, and it was some stupid trap that I still don't know how it works. But then the other guy's watching him and laughing, and then the guy drowns and dies, and then it cuts back, and it's like literally some music is like wow, 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 wow. Like it's not that, but it might as well be that theme.
Yeah.
Like you're like what? I laughed out loud.
Yeah, it's another red herring because Orsati's standing there laughing as he's drowning, and then he's running back to the house. So you're thinking, oh, well, you know why he's running back to the house? He's going back to look for the gold.
Yeah, but then that girl's taking a bath by herself while everybody's getting knocked off. Like,
well, technically the other girl's still there, but ultimately, we find out. Yeah, I even had to write down all the kills, and I wrote them down in order, and there's 14 total. Yet not one of them is even memorable in any way.
It's After Effects. We see that
exactly.
Matter of fact, when the one guy gets killed, Mickey Rooney, we see him start to fall out, and then it cuts away, and then the very next scene, there's a girl dead in bed, cut up.
Yeah.
So you leave a kill in progress to join another kill after it's happened. Yeah. I was like, what the fuck kind of cut is that? It was so weird. I thought I missed something. Because didn't we see at least 3 or 4 bodies just show up dead? Right?
Yes.
We didn't actually see them get killed. We saw the one hanging from the rafters, the Halloween funhouse kill. We saw the guy show up at the door, the Friday the 13th guy nailed to the door type kill.
The elevator.
Yeah, the elevator.
The first time I watched this, I was like, wow, this is kind of slow paced. But then I rewatched it. I'm like, no, you know what it is? It's just that those actors, as I mentioned already, they're not engaged. So once you get past that dialogue heavy, which really doesn't reveal anything other than there was gold, the guy's missing, he might be dead, we don't know, and we want it. And we might have to split it up for him to save on taxes. That's really the setup. Then people start dying. So then the second time I watched it, I'm like, it's not really that slow paced, but not quite as bad shit as Blood and Lace. But there's some bad shit, like that fucking kung fu scene, once again.
Oh, wow.
It's fucking, you're like, what? What is it doing in this movie?
I thought it was hilarious. I loved it.
It was just so unexpected, and it came out of nowhere. And it's the last guy of all. Like I said, the guy looked like Captain Lou playing Mario. He's the last guy I thought should be chopping people up freaking with judo chops. It just, I don't know. It was just weird. If ever a movie needed a 1.5 speed, it's this one. But not through the whole movie. Just through those scenes you were talking about.
I watched it on the second time, 1.5 the whole time through. The pace, the dialogue, everything I could hear perfectly. And it's not a long movie to begin with. It's under an hour and a half. And I watched the second view 100% on 1.5. Actually, I lie. 1.25.
The second view, I was fast forwarding through the areas where I knew it was sort of like nothing going on, but it does feel a little bit longer. I think the positives for this film, the cinematography looks very good, and like we talked about, the score, especially in the first third or half of the film, whatever it was pretty good. And then it becomes so goofy batshit that it's not good, but it's still mildly entertaining.
If they maybe cut that kung fu scene down and had some actual demises for them and maybe gored up the other kills, this could be something kind of special. But as it is, it's curious. It's curious to check out for curiosity's sake. As why would this shelved and there's some decentness sprinkled here and there. But yeah, sorry, Brandon, you're about to say something else.
No, I was going to say there's even a scene in the beginning with DeSaro, who's the guy who drowns in the pond, who's, he's either eating or sleeping, they say.
Yeah.
And what is it with him always eating? Yeah.
That was his character development.
And he's in the kitchen, and immediately when he walks into the kitchen, you see this big deli slicer. I'm like, oh, cool. We're going to get a deli slicer kill. Nope. He just walks out going to get a shirt that's in the middle of a pond and falls under.
Fucking bizarre.
That should have been...
But the ending, when we get into like the final 10 minutes, just insane. Like what?
It just tacked on. I think that whole last part was just tacked on. Like, how can we give this one last punch? And they gave us this most ridiculous. I don't even know if it was cliche at that point. It's a cliche now. It's a trope now. But it was so totally tacked on. The guy easily could have made it back. That could have been the end of the movie. Like whatever. And they just put this one last little bizarre punch.
Forget this. Yeah. Let's not pass over the biggest mistake of the whole film, and that's
they had no boat.
He had a boat.
Yeah. They had no boat.
Okay.
Yeah.
They got dropped off by Mickey Rooney. They were stuck on the island. Then all of a sudden, he's taking her back on the boat. Like
I thought that. Leave? Yeah. Okay.
That's such a huge mistake.
Well, wait a minute. Maybe it was that guy's boat that showed up. How did he get there?
I guess it's true. The killer.
Yeah. The killer. How else would he?
He was there before. He was there before because the POV shot happens before they come into the house.
Exactly.
It's a good POV shot too, but that's like a lot of the tension is just in that first little bit, and then the movie plays out very bad Agatha Christie because it was done way better.
What I thought. I felt like it was a Miss Marple episode, only terrible. Very bad Agatha Christie, and I love Agatha Christie.
And slasher elements. I mean, at least
slasher elements.
At least they had that going for it. For 1975,
they couldn't use anything for blood at the end. They had to use coffee.
Fuck.
Oh yeah, what the hell was that?
That was bizarre. Oh my lord!
Or did he shit himself?
I hear you. I think he got diarrhea. Got the shats. And I told you the wacky credit, but also Radio Shack gets a credit for electronics, and Chicken Unlimited gets a credit too. It's just for the 3 credits they have at the end. There's some wacky fucking credits.
What is Chicken Unlimited?
You tell me.
Sponsored by Black Mania.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. But they said they were 14 hours away on an island location.
Yeah.
So that guy had to show up.
And he's talking to the mainland like they're Marines or something. They're giving them news over. Oh, interesting fact. This one was, I'm like, what?
Yeah, what the hell? There was some confusing things. This movie needed some touching up, some editing, and some.
Because it just falls right off the boat.
That was cool. I like that though.
That was like a weekend. That was Weekend at Bernie's.
When they doing is illegal.
On the back. It would have been funny if she started hitting all the buoys or whatever, the metal buoys.
Oh yeah, like in the movie. Yeah. Boing! Yeah. I forgot about that. Nice. Does it make sense?
Sorry.
Or no?
Well, they don't lead you up to anything.
They don't give you anything. You
just buy
it. It makes sense, but there's no development, so we don't know why.
You know what else is weird? These are middle-aged people. That makes it, when you see it right off the bat and you're anticipating something slashery and you see people that age, right off the bat you're like, well, okay, they don't do this in slashers. It sets it apart. I mean, there's some younger people, I guess, that, I don't know. They're kind of all ages, but just unusual to see in this type of film where people are picked off one by one, even if it isn't, picked off one by one in the methods we're used to seeing and in the style.
I think you're expecting more double crossing, and there really is just maybe one.
Yeah, they give you so many red herrings, one after another, and yet the ultimate explanation you couldn't figure out, and that's what I hate about a film like this. If you're going to do it, give us, Agatha Christie would give you, in the end, the explanation. You could put it all together. Oh, it was right there in front of you. Whereas here, it is sort of right there in front of you, but it doesn't make any sense because there's no context to it.
Yeah. Missed opportunity.
Definitely a missed opportunity. Definitely.
But it's still a proto-slasher for a reason, and people should still check it out.
Yeah, I bought the, I think it was, I'm going to butcher this. Is it Garage House Pictures? I bought it at the convention I went to. The picture quality was good. The audio quality is not great. So they must have had audio issues, to begin with. But they did have subtitles, luckily. So that's why I was able to make out all these mistakes and all these funny things. Like when they find the guy in the shed hanging, and just the guy who eats all the time just goes, vampire. Just like that. Doesn't even scream it. He goes, vampire.
Because no one acts in this movie. Yeah, and some of them only have this movie as their credit. I looked through that too. There's 3 people that have a laundry list of credits, and then the rest are 1 movie, 2 movies.
Yeah. Really? I like the women. They were all okay.
They were attractive, and they were 50. I think one of them was 50 years old in this.
Yeah, Bob DiCarlo was in it.
Probably the first one that died. The dark-haired lady.
I think she was I think she was 50.
Yeah. What was up with the blonde girl trying to hook up with the freaking employee in the beginning? Remember that?
They were in love. She even said, I love you.
And then all of a sudden she turned on him. And she didn't care when he was gone. Remember?
Yeah.
She thought he was a suspect.
And then the other one thought he was a vampire. Vampire.
The movie has issues, as Brandon, you already stated, and I think we all stated. But for a curiosity piece, I know I'm repeating myself now, it's still worth seeking out. But at the end of the day, I didn't come in I 5.5 out of 10.
Wow, that's exactly where I'm coming in. But I'm actually glad I bought it. I'm glad I have it. It was lost for all these years, and now it's found.
Yes.
And that's it.
5.5.
I once was lost, and now I'm found.
Now I'm found. Yep. Yeah, 5.5 for me too. I had 6, but the more we talked about it, it didn't do anything to.
Dave, I had 6 too originally, but we kind of 5.5 to 6 seems like a fair rating.
Yeah,
That
it seems
kung
about-
fu scene alone either is going to shoot it right up or take it right down for people. Like it comes out of nowhere. You're like, what?
Yeah, and you get that Little Red Riding Hood thing at the end, which I thought was going somewhere good, and she was going to be a final girl, and then they completely fucked that up.
Too many missed opportunities. Like I said, if they just threw some gore and some inventive kills in here, this could have easily been like a 6.5, 7.
Sure. Yeah.
Or if they had done character development and backstory, made this a 2-hour film, this could have been maybe a masterpiece. We're
Yeah.
pushing it a little bit, maybe an 8. I'm saying stay away from the slasher elements, from the gore elements, and go more character development backstory. Then we understand, we relate to these characters. How is this? At one point they refer to each other, hey, second cousin. The only thing,
And that movie's called And Then There Were None.
that's true,
Same thing.
but it could have been a more modern And Then There Were None.
Yeah, it's tried and true. It's 10 Little Indians. It's been done in plenty of different films.
Even though
You
there's
know what
like
I mean?
15 people.
Okay.
Yeah, well, 15 Little Indians. What can I say?
10
Yeah.
Indians and 5 cowboys.
Oh, shit. So that's that. That's it. That we've reached the end of our Proto-Slasher show.
Good
Hope
show.
you enjoyed it. Yeah, good stuff.
Yep.
We had fun. Of course, the movies, 2 Hall of Famers and 2 first-time watches that were just slightly above average Proto-Slashers. But, nevertheless, check them out. I mean, if you're following along with us, you're listening to us talk about slashers for the past year, we're building up to our show number 50 and everything else. Check them out, man. See the evolution of slashers. Oh, we're watching a ton of them, so you guys should be too. As a matter of fact, we'll talk about it all next show. But now might be the time to start making your own predictions for what your top 50 slashers might be, what ours might be. We have some things going on. There's a contest going on with the one. I mean, we're going back a little ways, but we're getting closer to that time. So we're going to have to start talking about this. Most of our shows right now, we don't usually do this, but we're kind of planned ahead all the way up until the end of the year.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. We're going to do next show is all about Patreon. We're going to do Patreon reviews. We're going to have our guest Cracking Wise with us. It's going to be a heavy Patreon show. From there, we're going to have a franchise review. And then we're going to have another 2020 show. Show 49 is actually going to be our anniversary show. It's not going to be 50. We decided that 49 is going to be a party. We don't want to do all that anniversary stuff on our top 50 slasher show because that's going to be a marathon show. So much is going into it that we want to come on and just, get right into that top 50 slasher stuff. So 49 will be the anniversary. So, and then 51 will be Christmas, holiday, whatever. 52 will be end of the year. And then that takes us right to the end of our year. So,
Yeah.
pretty
Terrific.
wild. Yeah.
Wow.
We don't usually plan ahead this far, but this time we are.
Crazy.
And we'll see what happens. We might take a little time off after the end of the year show, or we'll do solo shows again. We'll see. We're gonna go pretty hardcore between now and then. So hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you guys enjoy the show. So
Yep. And again, giveaway next show.
for as little as $3 a month, you can at least be in on that stuff and be a tier 1. Just hop in and
Prize pack.
yeah.
And I'll leave you all with this note that we brought up Andrew Dice Clay earlier because one of the characters in one of the movies I thought looked like him. And Dice Season 2 is now out. And I think they're probably in episode 3. I've watched the first episode. It was good. I wouldn't say it was as good as some of the ones from last season, but it was funny, enough laugh out loud moments, and definitely looking forward to checking out the rest of Dice Season 2.
Episode 2 was fantastic.
Nice.
Oh, you
it's
saw
not
it?
Yeah, and it's not on this week, and it'll be back with episode 3 next week.
I haven't
Beautiful.
watched it yet. Wow.
Beautiful.
I'll tell you what. My heart dropped for a second when you said. I thought you were going to say that he passed away. Isn't that
Oh.
weird? That
No, I
when you
thought he was
first
going
said
to
that-
come to the realization that the actor who looks like Dice actually looks nothing like Dice.
It looks. I actually, what I've done is I took a picture because I knew you were gonna fucking open your mouth. I took a picture of it, and I'm gonna do a side by side shot on Facebook when we get closer to this show releasing. Bada boosh.
Don't be like, do they look alike? Just ask them to identify which one's Dice.
Yeah, it'll be one from Dice Rules, and then the guy from the fucking movie.
In Grandpa mask. In Freddy Krueger mask.
Oh, I got pictures of Freddy. I'll put that up too, so
Yeah.
people can see what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. You know what? I almost expected to see him skating on an ice pond towards the old woman in Curtains. Right? Did he look like the male versions of the Curtains ice skater?
I watched that recently again too. That's a fun slasher.
Oh,
so it's very underrated.
It's on Shudder. It's on Shudder now, by the way.
Yeah, but I got Canadian. You know what I love? I know, guys, we just said goodbye, but we're gonna talk a little bit more.
Well, we didn't
I love. Okay, so I go down to the States. I try to put my Netflix on, and sometimes it works beautifully, and sometimes it says it gets confused and it won't let me access stuff. When I go to Shudder,
go home.
Yeah, fuck yeah, probably. I put on Shudder. I go down there and I get the American Shudder. It just says now you're in the States, you get American Shudder. So when I was down there, I got all the giallos that we were talking about. So I had what did we watch?
Torso.
Yeah, Blood.
Torso came on. I was like awesome and everything else, but. Come back up here, boom, it's back to... I don't understand. I said, we brought it up before, I don't understand the jurisdiction, the copyright laws of why you're allowed to stream it literally 30 minutes away from me.
Now this weird story I saw on the news makes sense about this Canadian who's been sneaking over the border to watch giallos. That will make sense.
I'm just standing at the border at Buffalo.
Yeah, he's at Border Patrol with one foot on one side. Just trying to get...
Never gonna give me a Kappa?
Kappa! No, listen, speaking of Shudder, I finally had enough of it. I canceled my Shudder, that the one I've been watching all this time through my Amazon Prime on PlayStation, and because I got tired of logging in to see movies that I should see, and it says this movie's not available in your area. Then if you go on the website, you can watch it.
Now, so on the website, are there new original content ones available?
The website has everything. It has everything that you have. There's nothing on the website that isn't on the app one.
Okay, now
for the PlayStation, it has everything that there plus much more.
Okay, so what's on the website that's original content? Is there anything new out? Well, like we had Sweet Sweet Lonely Girl. Is there anything like that? Lake Bottom.
They were there, of course, because like I said, everything that's on there. No, the originals are available everywhere, but just. Other movies aren't. Like, for example, when we did that movie when I was on Super Mafia Cousins, when we did that show, there was the Case of the Bloody Iris, and Freeze told me that it was on Shudder. So I went up on Shudder, and I found it, and I clicked on it, and I said, this movie is not available in your area. And that happens sometimes.
Canadian Shudder.
It might have been Canadian Shudder. Maybe it is.
That's because Christian stole your Shudder when he snuck over the border.
Son of a bitch, yeah. Yes. So, no, listen. I went over, I said, fuck it, I'm going to go on the website. And sure enough, I logged in, and it was all there. So I said, you know what, enough of that. I canceled the one on Prime, and I signed up for the one on the website. And that's all there is to it. There's just more on there. And anyone that's doing it through the PlayStation, through Prime, just stop what you're doing now and cancel, because they'll bullshit you. They bullshitted me. I straight up asked them on the Shudder Facebook thing. I said, I heard that there's some titles that aren't available there, that are only available through the website. And they said, no, that's not true. Well, it was bullshit. And I hate to besmirch them because they're doing great work. But I
don't understand why you guys are having such problems. I have it on my computer if I want to log in through the actual website. I've got it on my iPad through the app, and I've got it on my Apple TV on the app, and it's all the same.
Through the what app? What app are you going through?
Just Shudder directly.
That's what I'm saying. When you have it on PS4, there is no Shudder app. You have to go through Prime. And you know how if you go on Prime, they have an HBO station and they have a Showtime. Yeah. Shudder goes through Prime. So in other words, when I have a list on Prime, it's my Prime movies and my Shudder movies all on the same list. It's one whole thing of things that I save for my queue. So Shudder does not have an app for PS4. They have it for Xbox now, thanks to JP. If you ask him, I'll tell you it was him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they have it on Xbox now, but they still do not have a Shudder app, that goes through the PS4. So
weird.
You have to go through its own app or the website if you have no way to get to the app. So that's what I did. Now I have access to everything, which is good. But
I've been through Prime, so maybe I'll make the switch.
Yeah, do it.
Screenbox is not available in Canada, and I didn't like the response. And they said they've been working on going to different regions for years. So I think I can safely say fuck Screenbox in Canada anyway.
Yeah, dude, you don't even need Screenbox. Like, I think there was like 2 movies I wanted on there, and they're both on Shudder now. So
the only box I want to scream is my wife's. Oh!
right before you bleach your ass.
Yeah. I haven't bleached my ass in a while, to be honest. We'll leave everybody on that note. I gotta go bleach my ass. See you next time.
Peace.